of Conga's extended hours license. The hearing will be conducted by the City Commission, which will hear testimony in the following order. City staff will report its analysis, call any witnesses, and introduce any evidence. The licensee will be able to testify, call any witnesses, and introduce any evidence. The formal rules of evidence do not apply. The city clerk will swear in all witnesses before they speak. Each person who approaches the podium to speak should state his or her name and whether or not the person has been sworn in. Any party, which is the city staff or the licensee, or any party's witnesses may be cross-examined. If a party or a witness refuses to be cross-examined, the testimony of that party or witness may not be considered or may be given lesser credibility by the City Commission. All cross-examination should be conducted in a courteous manner. The material in the City Commission's agenda package, as well as the information in Community Development's files, will be considered part of the record. After city staff and the licensee have testified and presented their cases, the hearing will be opened up to members of the public to speak regarding the revocation. The members of the public may choose to be sworn in. If a member of the public chooses not to be sworn in, the City Commission may consider that as a factor in evaluating the speaker's comments. After members of the public speak, city staff and the licensee may make additional statements. The public will be given an additional opportunity to comment. The hearing will then be closed and the matter decided by the City Commission. The standards the Commission is going to be considering under Section 312B1 of the City's Code provides that if at any time the Director of Community Development determines that any extended hours license holder has failed to comply with any applicable condition of its license or is operating in a manner harmful to the public health, safety, or welfare, that the Community Development Director may place on the City Commission public hearing agenda an item to determine whether the extended hours license should be revoked based upon the failure to meet the following criteria. And the Community Development Director's report is to prepare a report which provides an analysis of the following. A, compliance with all conditions imposed at the time the extended hours license was issued. At the time the extended hours license was issued, there were special conditions imposed, which included continuing to meet the conditions in Section 311A5 of the City Code, renewing the extended hours license every year, continuing to comply with with Sections 311A6B and 311A5H of the City's Code, notifying the Police Department in advance of hosting any special promoted event, and providing for special details. Additionally, our code requires compliance for all extended hours establishments with all of the following during their hours of operations: providing a security camera, post exterior warning signage stating that loitering is prohibited, and participation in the City of Sunrise No Trespassing program, compliance with the Florida's Responsible Vendor Act, not relinquishing control of the operation or management of the establishment to any other person or entity, offering a free taxi cab service or free towing to intoxicated patrons, post signage indicating the maximum capacity of the establishment, meeting all the requirements and licenses associated in order to serve, sell, and allow the consumption of alcohol in the premises, and providing off-duty police officers. B, exercise all reasonable precautions to discourage unlawful activity, including vandalism, crimes against property or persons, disturbances, loitering of patrons, narcotics use or distribution, excessive noise, vehicular use by intoxicated patrons, and illegal activity of any kind by employees, patrons, or others associated with the establishment. C, the exercise of all reasonable efforts to prevent nuisances both inside and outside the establishment. And D, not exceeding the number of occupants set by the city building and fire officials as the maximum capacity for the establishment. Based on the foregoing factors, Community Development issued a staff report recommending that the City Commission take action to revoke the extended hours license for Conga's Entertainment Corp., DBA Conga's Nightclub, because the licensee failed to comply with the conditions of its license and is operating in a manner harmful to the public health, safety, or welfare, as documented in the amended Community Development Department Revocation of Extended Hours License Report. The City Commission will review the recommendation of revocation of the extended hours license de novo, which means that the City Commission decides the issues without reference to any legal conclusion or decision made by Community Development. The code provides that after consideration of the matter and allowing staff and the license holder to address the City Commission and allowing all others wishing to speak, The City Commission may revoke the extended hours license or allow the licensee to continue operating during extended hours, subject to any reasonable additional conditions deemed necessary to mitigate or eliminate the adverse effects of such extended hours. These conditions may include, without being limited to, provision by the licensee of additional security personnel, soundproofing, noise reduction, and additional parking. If the extended hours license is revoked, no reapplication is allowed for that location within a 12-month period following the date of revocation. And appeal of any City Commission decision regarding the extended hours license shall be to the Circuit Court in Fort Broward County. Finally, let me direct you that the decision at the conclusion of the hearing must be based on competent substantial evidence related to the city code and not generalized opposition. That is not fact-based. The legal standard for substantial competent evidence is that it is substantial competent evidence which is sufficient to sustain a decision on appeal. Substantial competent evidence is such evidence as will establish a substantial basis of fact from which the facts at issues can be reasonably inferred. It is such relevant evidence as a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. Ultimately, the City Commission must decide whether such competent substantial evidence has been introduced into evidence at the hearing. The courts are divided in determining whether the testimony of citizens constitutes competent substantial evidence. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Kislin. You'll be representing the commission this evening?
Yes.
Mr. Rossman, you're representing the staff? Is there an attorney for the applicant? All right. At this time, I would ask that all persons who will be witnesses in this hearing for either the city or for the licensee to please come forward to be sworn in. Please identify yourself and the party for which you will be testifying. If there are members of the public who wishes to be heard, I will provide you time before the close of the hearing to speak. You may choose to be sworn in and cross-examined by the parties, but you do not have to be sworn in. Please come forward and identify yourself if you are a member of the public who wishes to speak on this matter, and tell us if you wish to be sworn in or cross-examined. So this...
Shannon Lay, the Community Development Director for the City of Sunrise.
You'll be testifying. Chief Rosa.
I'm going to get sworn in just in case.
All right. Mr. Cardinelli, are you testifying? Mr. Rossman, you have any other one? Any witnesses?
I anticipate calling Shannon Lay and Craig Cardinelli, potentially the chief, but that's it.
All right. Does the licensee have anyone they're going to be calling this evening or speaking? Come on up. Anyone else this evening? Just you?
That's the indication I was given, Deputy Mayor Kirch, that Ms. Bauman is going to address the commission, and they're not going to call any witnesses.
Mr. Bauman's not here, or not coming? Are you going to be speaking tonight, Mr. Bauman? Why don't you come on up and as an abundance of caution, because I got a feeling you're going to want to speak. All right, Madam Clerk, if you could please swear in the witnesses.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
All right, let the record reflect they all nodded and said, I do. All right, city staff presentation. Mr. Lebowski, are you presenting?
No, I will pass it off to Mr. Rossman.
All right, so now we'll hear.
Can I ask something preliminary?
Let me do the script and then I'll...
Okay.
All right.
All right, okay.
Now we'll hear from the city staff who may present witnesses and evidence regarding the suppression of the extended hours license. Before I turn it over to Mr. Rossman, what was your preliminary concern, Mr. Douglas?
I wanted to ask Council, have you had a chance between the last hearing and today to speak to the applicant?
I have spoken to the Baumans on 2 different occasions between the emergency hearing on August 30th and tonight.
And they're still self-represented?
They are. And I should actually say a third. I've also spoken with them tonight in the commission chambers, but 2 separate times in phone conversations between tonight and August 30th.
And you said they're still self-represented, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Were there any attempts, and judges do this to me all the time, I guess I'm in a quasi-judicial role tonight or whatever, but were there any attempts to resolve the issues that are brought before us today?
I have to say no, if I can explain that, though, because I found myself in kind of an extraordinary role. I didn't believe I have the authority to negotiate on behalf of the city.
Right.
That's ultimately the city commission and properly through council and through the city manager. So what I conveyed was I asked the Baumans if in fact there was something they wanted conveyed to the city. I think quite understandably they asked me, well, what is the city conveying to us? And I said, I don't have anything that I can convey to them. So that's kind of where it went. Also them being pro se, I didn't want the perception that I was taking advantage of them in some way, shape, or form. So I didn't guide them in any other way. They just said they were going to come to the hearing and plead their case here at the hearing. And it's my understanding that that's their intention, that they again have stipulated to city staff composite number 7, going along with the prior 6 that were admitted on August 30th. And I don't believe they intend to present any evidence in opposition to anything.
So I guess what I was trying to get at is there anything on the table that could cause us not to have to go through this whole hoopaloo that could bring this matter to resolution?
In conversations with them, and ultimately, again, I'm not their attorney, I'm the attorney for the staff, but what I understand is that this is what has been conveyed to me. They cannot survive without the extended license. And I know you heard that directly from them on August 30th. It seems earnest, not my job, I'm not the credibility person, you all are. They cannot survive without that extended license. Without that, they're out of business. They, I believe, would accept, and something that I would thought about discussing with the city attorney, and I don't know if this is possible for the city commission, but my thought was present the evidence tonight, or you can rely on the evidence that is in the composites, hold your actual vote on the revocation in abeyance, if the city chose to. If any commissioners were looking, and I don't know that any of you are, but if you're asking me what that conversation was like, the perception I got was they would accept that revocation hanging over them all the way to April of 2022 when they're up for renewal, where they would have to apply all over again, provided the suspension was lifted. That you could make your findings, and I believe there is substantial competent evidence for the commission to make findings, as you did at the suspension hearing, to revoke based on the city staff report.
Because I don't suppose anything fundamentally new is going to come before us tonight. So I was just trying to, not spend midnight here.
No, I agree with you 100%. I'm correct. And again, but that's the will of the commission. If the commission were looking for that, and they can speak for themselves, but they have related to me that they would accept that. In my position, I believe that gives the city tremendous leverage if, in fact, you have made your findings that you could revoke. Almost going back to my years as a prosecutor, to me, it would be like being on probation, where at any time, by the grace of the commission, you can revoke that probation. If there's any kind of violation or any substantial, just going back to those days, it has to be a substantial willful violation. If there were such, you would need to bring me back, pay me. You just have to notice them that you're voting, you've already made your findings, and you're revoking their extended license. I think they would accept that.
The reason I brought this up...
One second. Ms. Kislin, do you agree with that analysis?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
The reason I brought it up preliminarily is, again, I'm always open for giving everybody their full due process, but I'm not going to do this for optics either. I mean, we fully developed the factual basis, the legal basis, and everything else for the continuation of the suspension when it was last up. So I don't want us to just go through the same hoop just for optics purposes, because the record is clear. So
I agree with one addition, the city staff, composite number 7, but they have agreed to that and stipulated that they take no issue with it. So the record is clear. I agree.
yeah, so I did that so that I can then see if preliminarily my colleagues would want to just talk about that or say, no, let's get on with it. That I was just trying to see where.
Could I ask a question?
Mr. Spito.
Your discussion was with the husband or the wife or both?
They were both on the phone. Mr. Bauman did most of the speaking. Ms. Bauman spoke
Is he the owner?
very lightly.
Is he the owner of the company?
I believe she's actually the owner. He is an
Nothing to
authorized
the company,
representative.
but he's still the one that makes all the decisions, correct?
Oh, I cannot say that. I can tell you my
okay.
interactions with them tonight. She is going to speak.
Okay.
And I would not agree with that he is the one making all the decisions.
Okay.
Especially tonight. No, sir.
Okay, let's go.
Hold on one second. Mayor Ryan, did you want to chime in on Commissioner Douglas's suggestion?
I thank Commissioner Douglas for bringing that forward. I think, it's always helpful to try to see if there's a way to resolve issues and see if there's a way to go forward. And I've given this a lot of thought as well. I am not presently of the mind to allow probation. I'm not prejudging, and I'll allow the evidence to go in. But if the evidence was to turn out to be what has been presented in the backup, and without hearing anything else, I would be intending to find that there is substantial competent evidence, and I would be supporting the revocation.
Are you making that as a motion, Mayor?
No.
Okay.
I'm not. No, I'm not. I don't want to jump. I want to give everybody the opportunity. I want to stick with the script. But I'm grateful for Commissioner Douglas's effort, and his words of extending grace is something that we all need to be mindful of, and I have not given that short shrift. But if the evidence is that way, I'm not of the mindset, for a whole variety of reasons I won't go into right now, but I'm not of the mindset to extend the probation.
All right, let's move
Maybe
ahead.
my mind can be changed.
All right.
Let's move ahead.
I want to be fair and offer an opportunity to everyone up here. Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman, sounds like we're going to have to go through the evidence. You agree with that? All right. Staff, Mr. Rossman, you may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kirch. So I'd like to start. I do intend on calling two witnesses, as you've seen, the Community Development Director, Shannon Lay, and Lieutenant Craig Cardinale of the Police Department. Prior to doing that, just to make sure that our record is defensible on whatever decision you decide to make, I want to reiterate that City's Staff Exhibit Number 1, which should all of you should have the packet that presently I have before me. It has also been shared with the Baumans. City Staff Exhibit 1 was the chief's suspension notice. I'll ask you to take note that that is also duplicated in attachment I to composite number 7. And I'll wait in case you all don't have what I have. I think the city attorney has them right there.
Oh, good.
I go first, sorry. Age before beauty.
Okay. Sorry? I didn't hear you.
Did you say 7, Mr. Rossman?
You need a bathroom, right?
I did. I wanted to wait until everybody.
7?
Yeah, City's Exhibit Number 1.
Mr. Rossman, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I got a request from one of our colleagues to take a 5-minute bathroom break. So
Yes.
I've been false starting all week, so we're just going to continue. That's what you get with the backup quarterback. We're going to resume the meeting in 1 minute, so if everybody could get back to their spots. We got everybody? All right, let's reconvene the city commission meeting. We're on item 16D, extended hours license. The witnesses have been sworn, and commission, our staff is going to give the commission a presentation. Mr. Rossman, please begin.
Greg Rossman, Special Counsel on behalf of city staff, so thank you. So I want to start and make sure that our record is clear, not just from the August 30 special meeting, but for tonight's meeting since it is de novo. City's Exhibit Number 1, which is the chief's suspension notice, is also an attachment to Ms. Lay's city's composite number 7. Ms. Lay put together a composite exhibit, which is her city staff report, finding, which is the basis of her recommendation for the revocation and the basis of all her findings. So she has incorporated most of those exhibits. So I just want to make sure that when you're reading through the attachments, attachment I, as an indigo, is the chief's suspension letter. It is the same as City Exhibit Number 1. City Exhibit Number 2, which is referred to as Conga's joint stipulation, is also attachment O in Ms. Lay's composite number 7. City Exhibit Number 3, which is referred to as UC reports, that was 4 pages of police reports. That is incorporated in attachment L, as in Lima, which is a full 25 pages of police reports. That's all the reports. But those 4 pages from City Exhibit Number 3 are incorporated therein. City Exhibit Number 4, the resignation letter from the person who was the managing controlling person, stands on its own. It is not incorporated in the attachments. City Exhibit Number 5, Sunbiz registration, likewise had to do with the business, Conga's, and is not incorporated therein. City Exhibit Number 6, the flyers, is incorporated as attachments, both attachment J, specifically the social media pieces that were shown in the meeting with the Conga's representatives on August 5th, that Thursday. Then there's also attachment K, which was some other social media pictures as well. Those, as I understand the testimony, were not actually shared in the meeting, but were available to the public. And then you have City Composite Number 7, which is incorporating these attachments that I'm making reference to. Attachments A through J are basically a litany of ordinances and codes and the passing of ordinances allowing for Conga's first to operate as a nightclub and to get their license. Attachment H is an actual copy of Conga's license for the extended hours as it's renewed every year, April of, I believe it's 4 years that are incorporated there, finally concluding on April of 22. So 21 is in there, 20 is in there, and April of 19 is in there as well. Attachment, I've talked about attachment I, attachment J, K, L. Attachment M is the notice of the special meeting that was held on the 30th, and attachment N is in fact the commission's action and your findings from that special meeting on August the 30th. In speaking directly to the Baumanns, they have acknowledged receipt of all of Ms. Lay's communication via certified mail, via email. They have received these documents ahead of time. They also see them contemporaneously tonight. They have not told me they have not had an opportunity to review them. In fact, in their conversations with me, going back to prior to the special meeting, they have told me that they take no issue. They're not fighting any of the findings in these reports. So that is a preface. I would like, unless there's questions about the exhibits themselves, I'd like to get to testimony if I can.
Very well.
So this time I would call Community Development Director Shannon Lay. Good evening. If you, so they can hear you better, as long as we're socially distant, if that's okay with Deputy Mayor. I know they may know this, just to make the record, please tell the commission your role with the city.
I'm the Community Development Director here in the City of Sunrise.
In that role, did you call a meeting for August the 5th involving representatives of Conga's nightclub?
Yes, I did.
Let me back up for a second. I've just made reference to these exhibits. Did you compile City Composite Exhibit Number 7, which includes a staff report with your name and your recommendations on it?
Yes, I did.
Did you send notice of today's hearing and your revocation letter to the Baumanns?
Yes, I did.
Are you personally aware, did they acknowledge in some way that they received it?
Yes.
The meeting that you called on August the 5th, who did you originally invite to that meeting?
I invited city staff, Lieutenant Cardinelli, of course myself, Kim Sibner, community development staff, who is code compliance manager, Susie Malcolm from the fire department, and Megan Caffel, the deputy director, as well as Frank Bauman himself.
Did all those people attend the meeting?
Yes.
And you say you invited Frank Bauman. Did he attend by himself?
No.
Who did he bring?
He brought Daniel, or also referred to as Danny Aronson.
And did it become known to you prior to that meeting that Mr. Aronson was in fact an attorney?
I knew he was an attorney, but I didn't know he was going to be present. I dealt with him in prior establishments.
I asked the question badly. I'm saying, so as you were there at the meeting and you become aware that Mr. Aronson's there, you were aware then at that time he was an attorney, correct?
Correct, yes.
Based on that, did you invite another person, Assistant City Attorney Tom Moss, to stay over from a previous meeting and sit in on the meeting that you had scheduled for Congress?
Yes, I did.
And that was specifically because now Congress had arrived with an attorney as a representative, correct?
Correct.
What was the purpose of that meeting on behalf of the City of Sunrise? Your purpose, and not the Baumans, but looking out from your perspective. Why did you call that meeting?
I was made aware of some social media attachment K, and I think it's J, attachment J, and wanted to inform them of the city codes, their conditions of approval, what they can and can't do, and be proactive rather than reactive.
And when you say them, you're referring to representatives of Conga's nightclub, correct?
Correct.
And specifically in that meeting, Mr. Frank Bauman and Danny Aronson.
Correct.
Did you, in fact, show them what's marked as attachment J in your city composite number 7, those social media posts, pictures?
I gave them their own copy.
And did you tell them that those posts caused you concern on behalf of the city?
Yes, I did.
Specifically, what did you tell them your concerns were, based on seeing the advertisements?
I was concerned that what was portrayed there and the establishment name that was in another city, Vegas Cabaret, was known as a strip club, that was a use that wasn't a permitted use at this location.
And specifically in the code, that's referred to as adult entertainment, correct?
Regulated uses are adult establishments, yes.
Adult establishments.
Our adult entertainment, there's like 3.
But you advised the representatives of Conga's in that meeting that that was not an approved use, and they could not, in fact, have adult entertainment of any kind in Conga's.
Yes, I did.
And let's take them one at a time. Did Mr. Bauman speak in reference to that? Did he answer to you? What did he say?
That they had no intentions of doing such. It was just going to be a hip-hop club, and there was no intentions for a so to say, strip club or adult entertainment.
Did Mr. Aronson, the attorney on behalf of Conga's, address that issue as well?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
He said they had no intentions of having nudity, that the girls are going to keep their clothes on, and it'd be more modest than you'd see at the beach.
Did Lieutenant Cardinale, in your presence, speak at that meeting as well?
Yes, he did.
Do you recall if he told both the representatives of Conga's that it was his intention to have undercover officers inside the club Friday night on August the 6th to basically verify what it was they were saying in the meeting on August the 5th?
Yes, he did.
You also went out, well, let me ask you, did you go out to Conga's on Friday, August the 6th?
Yes, I did.
Did you see food trucks in the parking lot?
Yes, I did.
Did you see, you never went inside the club, did you, that night?
No.
Did you speak to at least one or more of the people that were operating the food trucks?
Yes, I did.
Did you ask them how they knew to be there? If you recall.
I didn't ask them that specifically.
Did you hear them say why they were there?
Yes.
What did they say?
They said they were invited from the Vegas Cabaret Strip Club, that it had been closed and is now moved to this location, and they are there because they provide food after the club closes, and they invited them down here to the new location.
So they told you that Vegas Cabaret had invited them to be there? Did you personally witness VIP parking or people taking money for parking in the parking lot while you were there?
I didn't witness actually money exchange, but I did witness VIP parking, and they actually approached myself and who I was with, Mr. Lebowski, to try to pay us.
Try to get you to pay for VIP parking?
Well, no, they were trying to pay. They thought we were the valet.
Oh, okay. I'm glad we clarified that. You have prepared in City Composite number 7, the first 8 pages of that composite. And I'm sorry, page 1 actually is the notice for tonight's hearing, so it is pages 2 through 9, but they're numbered at the bottom, 1 through 8.
Yes.
That is your staff analysis with your recommendations, correct?
Yes.
And it is your recommendation that each violation can be sustained?
Yes.
Or, yeah, can. And based on that, that these substantial violations, it is your recommendation that the extended license be revoked?
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions for the witness. And first I will, I guess, leave it to Deputy Mayor to see.
Mrs. Baumann or Mr. Baumann, do you have any questions for Mrs. Lay? For the record, they're both shaking their head no. Go ahead, Mr. Rossman.
At this time, I will excuse the witness unless there are questions directly from the commission.
Give me 1 second. How do we want to go forward? Do we want to question each witness, or do you want to wait till the end?
I don't want to do a circle, so once they're here, we might as well, if we have questions, even though we may not, it doesn't mean we have to have, but
All right.
just keep it moving.
Could I just, on the meeting of August 5th, why did you call the meeting of August 5th?
The social media posts that were brought to my attention in item, let me just make sure because I have two, J, attachment J.
Right. So how long before the meeting of August 5th did you notify the applicant, or whatever, how you want to, Frank? Well, everything is directed to Frank, even though he's not even an officer of the company. Everything is directed for him because he was at the meeting. So I have to, I guess, use Frank and...
The term I use is he was an authorized representative.
No, well, I'm just trying to say, I don't want to say
He doesn't
Congress.
have to be on the business, he could be a manager, so just use.
Right.
That's why I
Okay,
use the
so-
term authorized representative. He was
Okay,
speaking on
so-
behalf of Congress.
I'm just trying to get it. There was a meeting on August 5th, but it wasn't just a meeting because we have a meeting. It was a meeting because you received information or saw a flyer, so you contacted Congress to say, hey, what is this? This is not something that's allowed in our city. So I would like to have a meeting with you. And you told them, did you tell them a week before this meeting that, like, what was the conversation?
The first time I had conversations with Congress Representatives Frank was the Tuesday, which I believe would have been August the 3rd.
Okay. So you called them before the meeting and said you want to have a meeting on this because you have issues.
Yeah, I explained to him I wanted to have a meeting because I had some concerns and I wanted to go over what he could and couldn't do and go over his approvals and provide him copies.
So at that point, did you tell him that you had flyers? Or was it only at the meeting did he?
I didn't go into the level of detail that I went into the meeting. It was simply letting him know there were concerns and I wanted to address them and be proactive as opposed to reactive.
Okay.
If I may follow up on that with a question too. From my understanding in a conversation with Ms. Light, you do regularly have meetings like this when a new business opens or when a business transfers. I say to your credit, you reach out to those businesses to make sure they know what they can and cannot do, correct?
Yes, this is standard protocol.
Okay. That was the term that was used.
Are you familiar or aware of any other member of our staff that contacted any member of any representative of Congo's prior to the 3rd?
Yes, there's other city staff that did contact them.
Who's that?
I believe the city manager contacted them.
Prior to the 3rd?
Yes.
So you're saying even though you contacted them on the 3rd, there was other contacts related to this, if you're aware, related to the same issue?
Yes.
Okay,
That's my understanding. I was not part of those conversations.
understood, but
Thank you.
it was related to the same matter.
Yes, that's my
Thank you.
understanding.
I just, because the city manager wasn't sworn in.
Hold on. We're doing Ms. Lay now.
No, that's what I'm-
Calling.
I'm asking what she knows.
Right.
I'm
So
not,
if you have a question for Ms. Lay,
No, I know that.
And I
I
believe
didn't know
police
if I
might
could
have had a
ask her that
conversation.
question if anybody
you can
else.
ask any question you want, for as long as it's.
So that was
it's answered.
what I was trying to get at. Was there anyone else that spoke to someone from Congress before the 3rd? I'm saying is, when you say the 2nd, that means he only had a 2 or 3 day notice before. But they really were notified much earlier than the 2nd that we were aware of something going on at their place.
I can't speak to the date, but it was prior to me meeting with them.
So it was prior to the meeting and prior to the 2nd.
Well, we said 5th, 4th, 3rd. 3rd is the date, yeah. 3rd is a Tuesday, it was a Tuesday.
Right, 3rd is when you spoke to him, I'm saying.
Correct.
When would have anyone, other than yourself, city staff, when did they speak to them?
I believe it was before that.
I'm saying, was it the Friday before? Was it the Thursday before?
I do not know if it was the Monday before, if it was a week before. I actually was on vacation
Was it
2 of the
one- I'm saying,
days.
was it one person from staff or was it multiple?
I know the city manager had conversations, I was told, as well as I think police might have, but I would need to confirm with that.
Okay. So that's much more of a notice than just the 2 days that you're saying, that they were aware that we were going to contact them again to set up a meeting. That's what I just wanted to get for the record, that it wasn't just the few days, it was much longer.
I don't believe that she knows the date of that, but there was notice, and I believe, and I'll ask the question, one of the reasons that you specifically scheduled this meeting on that Thursday before the 6th was because of some concerns the city manager had relayed to you, correct?
Yes, that was one of them, yes.
So that's how you knew he had spoken previously to representatives of Congress, specifically Frank Baumann.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Scudo, any further questions?
That's
of
it,
Ms. Witness?
Commissioner.
Commissioner Douglas, any questions of Ms. Lay?
no.
Mayor Ryan, any questions of Ms. Lay?
Yes, thank you. Following up on Commissioner Scudo's talented cross-examination, so what was the message that was conveyed to you by the city manager regarding his conversation or contact with Mr. Baumann?
That he informed them of the advertisements and that this is not something that they could do, is to, for lack of a better term, have a strip club, not using the technical zoning term, and that we would be watching them.
And just for clarifying the record, when you say he, you're referring to the city manager.
Yeah,
Just made those comments.
yeah, that's my understanding.
And so let me understand this. The city manager tells you he had a conversation with Frank, conveyed that he can't do this, and yet you still needed to have a meeting. Why was that?
Based on my previous experience in dealing with these uses, I felt that it's appropriate for the regulating department and to provide them the actual copies of both their nightclub and extended hours and go through it. I like to treat everybody the same standard protocol, so I felt it was appropriate.
But had the city manager communicated to you any doubt in his mind that Mr. Baumann would comply with that, such that you needed to reinforce it?
Can you state that question again, please?
Sure. Did the city manager express to you any doubt as to whether Mr. Baumann would comply with the extended hours license? I mean, he had spoken to him, explained to him he can't do it, and yet you were still conducting a meeting. What was conveyed by the city manager that led you to believe you needed to do this?
Well, the concern is how the establishment, Vegas Cabaret, was operating in a different municipality, and that was being advertised that this was going to be their new location. So it was a perplexity and concern as to if it is the same establishment, then one would think it would be operating the same from a perception standpoint.
And when you say Vegas Cabaret and it's a new venue, you're referring to attachment J, where Vegas Cabaret is announcing on social media, quote, "Don't miss out our grand opening at our new venue in 2 weeks," end quote. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you spoke to Frank on the 3rd. He didn't go into great detail, but he agreed to meet with you, correct?
Yes.
Was he aware at that point, to your knowledge, whether staff, whether it was Mr. Lebowski or your department, had obtained these advertisements at that point, to your knowledge?
I believe he was.
Okay, and why do you believe that?
Because I believe that was a conversation that was represented to me from the city manager, that these advertisements was the genesis of that conversation as well. And I might have mentioned to him, but I didn't provide him copies. I was very general in terms of that we saw some things that concerned us.
Okay. And at the meeting, did you provide the advertisements to Frank and his lawyer?
Yes, sir.
Did they express any surprise at the messages that were contained on the advertisements?
No.
How would you describe their demeanor when you provided them these advertisements in Exhibit J?
It's marketing to get people to come. And I mean, very neutral, no excitement, neutral.
What did he sound mortified or shocked at the marketing?
I do not believe so.
Okay, that's your opinion of having observed him, seeing him firsthand. He did not appear to you to be shocked at the advertising.
Correct. That's my opinion based on what I saw.
And Mayor, I'm sorry, but for our record, when you say he, you're referring to Frank Bauman, correct?
Right, I think the record's clear on that. Yes, of course. With respect to Attachment K, which are additional advertisements, when were those pulled together?
They would have been provided, I pulled them together after. I didn't have them at my disposal on Thursday. It was after the incident on Friday night and
Okay.
the suspension.
So you directed staff to find these additional advertisements that had gone out before the 6th, but which you did not have in your possession prior to the 6th.
Correct.
These were advertisements that had been posted on July 28th, if the documents are to believe, and August 1st, correct?
Yes.
And when you were, you said you and Mr. Lebowski went to Conga's on the 6th. Did you see Frank there?
No, and I was not, just to make the record clear, I was not inside, but I was at the establishment outside. I did not see
Okay.
Frank Bauman.
At any time that you were there, did you see Frank?
No, sir.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman, any questions for Mrs. Lay? I have no questions.
Thank you.
Next
May the
witness.
witness be excused.
Witness is excused. Staff can call their next witness.
Next witness I would call would be Lieutenant Craig Cardinale.
Mr. Cardinale, please come forward. Mrs. Ballman, I'm sorry, before we go forward, did you have any questions after hearing those from Mrs. Lay? No? You're shaking your head no? Okay. Mr. Rossman, go ahead.
Lieutenant Cardinale, are you a certified police officer in the state of Florida?
Yes.
How long have you had that certification?
28 years.
I ask you to, when you speak, I know you're looking at me, but try to speak into the microphone. That way you can be heard by everybody, including
This
the mayor.
isn't your first time testifying, is it?
28 years.
And presently, are you working for the City of Sunrise in the capacity as a police officer?
Yes.
And your rank is lieutenant?
Yes.
Specifically on August the 5th, did you attend a meeting that you've just heard Ms. Lay testify about in reference to Congas? Did you attend that meeting in your capacity as a lieutenant with the Sunrise Police Department?
Yes.
What was your purpose for being at that meeting?
I always go over the police aspect of any of the clubs that are going to be open and tell them what they can and can't do as well.
For example, what is the police aspect? What would the police concerns be for a club that might be opening up, such as Congas?
Well, we just want to make sure that they understand when and when they cannot serve alcohol and in this instant, whether they can, the clothing that they're required to wear.
Any concerns about additional traffic, crime, anything like that when a new club opens?
No, we do go by and make sure that they have certain things in the ordinance as far as cameras and stuff that are operating.
Security at the front door? Okay. In this meeting, did you personally tell Frank Baumann that, and his lawyer, the lawyer representing Congress, Daniel Aronson, that it was your intention to have undercover officers inside the club Friday night, August 6th?
Yes.
Prior to that, had they conveyed to you, or were you listening, if not directly to you, in the meeting, had they conveyed that they were going to, quote unquote, follow the rules and not break any of the rules?
They did.
And yet you told them, correct me if I'm wrong, that they knew you? What did you tell them exactly?
I told them, you guys understand that the women have to be clothed? They said yes. I said, you understand, I am going to send people in there to make sure. And they said yes.
And did you say anything to the effect that they should know you, that you're going to verify what they're saying by that?
Yes.
Did you, in fact, send in undercover officers on Friday, August the 6th?
Yes.
And are you familiar with their reports as laid out in L, the attachment, Lima, the 25 pages? There are 4 pages that were also admitted as City Exhibit number 3 at the suspension hearing on August the 30th.
I did not read their reports.
You spoke to the officers that night and the next day, correct?
Yes.
So you're familiar with what they saw?
Yes.
So before I get to what you saw, let me back up for a second. Did you go inside the club?
I did.
On August the 6th, that Friday night?
Yes.
Tell the commission your observations in reference to what you first saw and maybe smelled.
When I walked in, I could smell the odor of burned cannabis. As I walked through,
You know what cannabis smells like, Bert?
my knowledge, training, and experience.
Okay, all right.
Good answer.
Experience as a police officer.
As a police officer. As I walked through the club, I saw a female on a temporary stage closest to the bar. She was wearing a bikini, and the side of her top was pulled to the sides, exposing her breast.
Now, you just mentioned a temporary stage. Explain to the commission, let me be more direct, was there only one temporary stage?
I think there were 3.
And these, as you refer to temporary stages, did they have poles on them?
They did.
Were those poles affixed to the ceiling in any way, in any permanent fashion?
No.
And on all of those stages, were there women on those stages when you at different times when you walked through the club?
I only noticed the one. I don't know if there was women on the other at that time.
However, in speaking to the undercover officers, did they make observations of women dancing, clothed, and also with nudity?
Yes.
What were the observations?
There was women on all the poles that were, exposed.
And do you recall if the undercover officers talked about seeing a woman actually go over and either grind or move on top of the lap of somebody in exchange for money?
I believe along the bar that they were talking about that, yes.
You say grind like a lap dance?
I think they were leaning on them is when I saw a picture of.
So those are your observations from inside. I want to talk about now your observations outside. Were you, well, first of all, you were there outside, correct, prior to going inside?
Yes.
Did you observe food trucks?
Yes.
Did you observe an issue with VIP parking or preferential parking?
Yes.
Involving payments for special parking?
Yes.
Did you become aware that there was a shooting? Well, let me ask this. Did you become aware that there was a shooting outside the club?
Yes.
Were you present when that happened?
I was at the other side of the plaza.
So did you hear a shot?
I didn't hear it. I heard on the radio.
Were there other Sunrise police officers, and I'm not including the undercovers inside at the moment, were there other Sunrise police officers outside the club at that time?
In the parking lot, yes.
And did one of them specifically respond to the shooting
Yes,
directly?
yes.
If you're aware, what did he do?
Believe when he realized the vehicle that it was in, he ran up to the vehicle and tried to confront the suspect.
And you reviewed this on body cam footage, correct?
Yes,
So, from your knowledge of what happened, was the shooter somebody who was alleged to have previously been a patron inside the club?
yes.
When the officer responded to the vehicle where the shooter first appeared, was he able to apprehend the, I should say, alleged shooter?
Alleged, yes.
I'm
No, he was not able to apprehend. He sped off when he banged on the window.
So the person was first outside the vehicle, and the officer went to approach, and the person got in the vehicle and did not listen to the officer's command and drove away as he was trying to apprehend him.
I believe by the time the officer got to the vehicle, he was already in the car.
Well, the reason I ask it that way is your understanding that the person shot from inside the car, or they were outside the car when they fired around?
No, they were outside the car.
And is that because you found physical evidence, the Sunrise Police Department found physical evidence of a projectile and a cartridge outside the vehicle?
Yes, on the sidewalk.
And where, if you know, did the round strike?
I don't know, it was towards the building. That's all. I don't know if they found where it hit.
When it was shot towards the building, were there patrons outside the building, in front of the building, waiting to get in?
I know security was there. They were out in front.
And did Sunrise police officers, in speaking to security, identify the shooter? By speaking to the security guard,
Yes.
after Friday, did there come a point in time when you served the chief's notice of suspension letter personally on either Frank or Sherry Bauman?
I did.
Who did you serve?
Frank.
And when you handed him the notice, did you, for lack of a better term, in summary, explain to him what it was? Tell him what it was?
Yes, we went over it.
Did he respond to you?
Yes.
Did he explain to the commission what he said? Did he make any admissions? What did he say to you?
He was very upset. He advised that that is not what the intention was. He said they met with management before then, and they were clear that they were to remain clothed. He was visibly upset and said this never should have happened, and I had the wrong manager for the job.
But did he never indicated to you that he refused the letter because he was not in control of the club, correct?
No, he didn't. He did not refuse it.
So by his acceptance, and I'm not trying to ask you this legal question, but just comment, by his acceptance, you took that to mean that he was accepting on behalf of Conga's nightclub.
Correct.
The last question I have for you is, are you familiar with Conga's nightclub prior to August the 6th and the meeting on August the 5th?
Yes.
Have Sunrise Police Department responded? If you're aware, has there been a drain on resources or response on any other instances any times prior to that?
No.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions for the witness.
Mr. Cardinelli.
You want to go first? Or
Yeah.
Maybe let the Bowmans have an opportunity.
Bauman's go, and then we'll ask questions. Mrs. Bauman, any questions for Mr.
They have no
Mrs.
questions.
Bauman shaking her head no. I'll open up to the commission for questions. Commissioner Douglas, you can go first this time.
Yes, sir. You mentioned a while ago that when you approached, he said, I had the wrong manager. Did you come away with the impression at that point that he was still acting as if he was operating, but he delegated his managerial authority to somebody? He was still part of what was going on? Because you said he mentioned, oh, I had the wrong manager for this.
Yeah, he was explicit in saying they were supposed to follow the guidelines, not taking off any clothes. They were in bikinis and they were not supposed to take anything off at all. He said that was the wrong guy because he did not follow directions.
Did we observe full nudity in the club by yourself or one of your fellow officers?
I did not.
Did you speak to anybody who purported to be managing the club during that night?
I did speak to one gentleman right after the shooting. I believe he was the manager, and he was right there with the officer that actually tried to apprehend him.
Okay. So did anybody give you the impression that night that, oh my God, we got to let Frank know about this? Or just I'm in charge here. This is.
He clearly said he was the manager in charge.
Okay. Given that you are aware that Frank is the de facto representative that you have dealt with in the past, did you try to find him that night? Is he here? Did you ask for him?
I spoke to him the next day.
Okay, so but in terms of on the night on the scene, we first showed up where we see all this gathering, we go in the club. Did anybody try to find him to say, hey, this doesn't look like what?
I knew that he was not going to be there.
Oh, okay. So how did you know this?
Because he had told me that he was going to be home with his wife.
Okay. So when we arrived, I presume there were police officers outside as people were gathering. About what time of night was this? Not when the shooting occurred, but when we started to, we had representatives on the scene as...
Oh, I was there at about 8 p.m.
Okay. So you were there for several hours then?
Yes.
And as you were observing the scene changing, and what was the nature of, did the patrons look like the general type that would attend that kind of club, or was it, how would you describe the patronage?
Well, I was there, when I got there at 8, we had a couple, we had the food trucks that we dealt with them, and then the patrons, we had some that were being loud and urinating on the trees, and then everybody went in the club. But there wasn't a lot of hanging out outside of the club.
Okay. In terms of capacity, how many people were attending this event?
I believe they were, I know that they have a large capacity in there. I'm sure they were below their capacity.
Okay. So you wouldn't call it crowded at that point?
Not as big as the club is. It's a rather large club.
Okay. Did anybody observe money is being thrown? The typical strip club deal, and I don't have to use the legal jargon about on whatever use misled.
Adult entertainment, just because that's what's in the code.
Yeah, but I'll call it strip club. Did you see dollars being thrown?
When I walked through, I did not see dollars being thrown.
Okay, so but in terms of your fellow officers, did you get any reports about that?
I don't know. I'm not sure what they saw.
Okay. Are we aware of the basis why the shooting occurred? What happened?
I believe I spoke to the people. I heard what happened. No, I was told that security. He tried to walk out with a beverage, and security says you're not allowed to leave with a beverage in your hand. And he says, I just paid for the beverage. He goes, I'm sorry, I'm not letting you leave with that beverage. And then apparently the guy said, well, then I'm going to go to my car and get my gun. But the security guy goes, you're not leaving with the beverage. So I guess the guy had to leave his beverage, got upset, went back, grabbed his firearm.
So you said we had cops there at the time, right?
Correct.
How many officers would you say you had outside around that time?
In the front area, we had the detail officer there. The rest of us were in the parking lot just checking areas and making sure it was okay.
So nobody reported to you that some guy just threatened to shoot up the club?
No, I think it was simultaneous, like right after he made the threat, he walked to his car was parked directly, it was the parking spot right in front of the club.
Okay.
So he literally walked on the sidewalk from the front door to his car. It was the first car you could see there.
Mm-hmm. That's the only shot that was fired?
Yes.
You mean we didn't take the guy out?
No.
Man. All right. I don't have any additional questions, I'm sure.
Mr. Scudo, questions for this witness?
So you just stated that that person had the first parking spot in front of the club. Could you tell me what kind of gun this person had?
I believe it was an assault rifle.
An assault rifle. So an assault rifle, the first car in the parking lot, people outside, this potentially could have been like, an assault rifle, I mean, if somebody got shot with an assault rifle, I mean, how many people could that go through? Multiple people or just one person?
Oh, it could go through more than one person in the right shot.
So on the first night of someone's grand opening, we had someone with an whatever assault rifle in the club. Regardless of whether people were flashing money, because, I mean, it was their first night. So, and you said it wasn't at capacity at that time. What was the time where the shooting occurred? Like, what time was that?
I think it's around 1:30. I think that's about the time. I mean, I could be totally wrong. I don't know.
But so you weren't inside at 1:30?
No, I was not inside.
When did you leave the club? At like what time?
I walked through the club, I think it was around midnight.
So this is what the problem is. I'm saying you left at 12, when it wasn't at capacity. Probably at 1:30 could have been maybe getting more crowded, because that's where...
I know the undercovers were still in while it occurred, so I know.
So we told him the day before, Frank, because to us, he's the owner of the club, or he's the manager of the club, because he's the only one. So far, the city manager contacted him a week before, the Thursday or Friday before the meeting. He was the one that was contacted. Shannon contacted him, same person, Frank, 2 days before the meeting. At the meeting, it was the same person, Frank, who attends the meeting. You spoke to Frank. Shannon spoke to Frank. I mean, everything has to deal with Frank. This is what it seems. Frank wasn't there the night of. So it's like, how do you have your grand opening of your first business and you're not there that night, and then all of this happens? I mean, it just seems that no one had control. He seems like he didn't, but we told him a week before, hey, we got these flyers. We think this is something that's going to happen at your club, a week before. Then 2 days before, then the day of the club. I mean, it just seems that, and you said at the meeting that you were going to be present and that you were going to have undercover officers present?
I told Frank, I will be there and we will put undercovers. And he didn't have a problem.
I'm saying, and this still happened.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just saying, usually if you say, hey, I'm going to go rob a bank, and I say, hey, well, I'm going to have all these cops at the bank, I probably would think maybe that day you don't want to rob the bank. I'm going to have all these cops here.
Joey, we are going to have time to make our
right.
ask
He
ask
and
the
the
questions and
Right.
let's get on.
The question.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer like you guys. You guys know technical. This is the only way I could explain it.
get to make it.
Right.
So Frank and the attorney they welcomed it.
Right, so everybody knew, like you said you were going to be there, you said the undercover was going to be there,
Yes.
and yet, just blatantly, they did whatever they wanted anyway. Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Mayor Ryan, questions for Lieutenant Cardinelli?
Good evening, Lieutenant Cardinelli.
Hello.
I want to begin by asking you, when did you first become aware of the decision to meet with the representatives of Congress?
I had gotten a flyer. Well, I didn't get the flyer. My major showed me a flyer before I had the meeting, and we just wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be any problems. I called Frank on his cell phone because I have his number, and I said, Frank, there was a flyer going around that looks like it may be inappropriate. And he had told me that he is not on any social media. It's not his social media account. And then when I said it looks like there could be a women's entertainment club, I said, you know, we will stop that because you're not licensed to do that there. He said, we will not be naked. No one will be nude. I said, I just want to make sure because you know that we will go check it out. And he said, yes, I know. I said, okay, thank you. And that was that.
The flyer that you're speaking about, is that the one that announced that Vegas Cabaret was having a grand opening at their new venue?
I don't remember which flyer it was.
Mary,
Council, can you show me attachment J,
Yes.
sure, we're showing
please?
attachment J for the record.
Yeah, I think it was this. Well, let me see. I can't even see that.
Bigger version of that is, that's the bigger version of the second page of K.
No, I didn't see that one.
So the first one in J.
I can't hear you. Go ahead, Lieutenant.
Once he's still looking at it, Mayor, I'll get the question answered for you.
Yeah, I believe it was, I'm sorry, what's that one?
He's pointing to page 1 of composite J.
Did you hear that, Mayor? He recognizes
Yes.
page 1 of composite J.
Okay. And page 2 has the reference to a grand opening at their new venue.
He has to look at they
I
took the
believe that's
exhibit
what I
away
just-
from him.
I
Hold on
believe
one
that's what I
second.
just saw, was where it said grand opening.
J.
Okay.
Yeah, that-
1 second, Mayor, he's still looking.
You were from,
It says
Okay.
grand opening, yes.
What's your answer, Mr. Cardinelli? What is it?
Yes, it says, the one that says grand opening.
Yes, Mayor, go ahead.
did you have any discussion with Frank as to Vegas Cabaret and why Vegas Cabaret would be announcing Congas as a new location?
No, I did not.
Did he sound surprised that there was a concern about advertising that could suggest adult entertainment?
No.
I mean, here you're calling him on his cell because you had seen what the advertisements were in J. You weren't with him, correct?
No, I was over the cell phone.
Right, so you didn't have the advertisement to show him, but you described what you had seen, and he didn't express any surprise that there had been this type of advertisement.
No, like I said, he advised that he doesn't have any social media, but he reassured me that the women were not going to be taking off their clothes.
And when he said the women, he understood that there were going to be women there dancing, but they wouldn't be taking off their clothes?
Correct.
Okay. Then you had the meeting that Ms. Loy testified to. You were there for that meeting, correct?
Yes.
Again, was there any discussion regarding this advertisement that you had already seen and Ms. Loy had seen?
Yes, there was a discussion of it.
Okay, tell me about that.
I believe it was the one that said same entertainers, same employees. And then we asked about that, and then the lawyer, I forget his name,
Mr. Aronson.
Mr. Aronson, said yes, it does not say same entertainment. It just says same entertainers, same employees.
Right, so what it said was same staff, same entertainers, and many new girls too, correct?
I don't remember.
Okay. Council, can you leave Jay with him just so we don't have to go back and forth on this? I have only a few more questions on that.
You better put your mask on, you're going to get yelled.
1 second, Mayor, he's getting it.
This is J right there.
Okay. Yeah, but that's not the one I saw.
You ready, Mr. Cardinelli?
Right.
Hold on, Mayor.
Right, and you can see right on page 2 it says, quote, same staff, same entertainers, and many new girls too. See that?
Mayor, hold on, he's
doesn't have
still trying to get to the right page.
Is
Hold
that-
on 1 second.
This is like 1 inch by 1 inch, and I don't have my reading glasses, so.
He doesn't have his glasses on.
His copy of it, that's what he's looking at, page 2 of J.
Here, you want to take mine? Here,
See, it's like this big.
I
come on up.
think yours is the same.
Jay?
When Ms. Lay printed it out, that's the size it came out.
Oh, no, the next one is what I think the mayor's referring to, but if you look at the next page, I can't read that.
All right.
you look at
That's
Exhibit
fine. Let's just
6.
move on from it. It's not that important. It says that, but there was an issue about entertainers versus entertainment. That was the lawyer speaking?
Yes.
Exhibit.
Okay.
Look
What
at
was the demeanor? Did he feel that was comical, or was he trying to express something to you? What was your feeling about it?
The attorney was confident that he felt confident in the flyer because he said, listen, it's a marketing ploy. We are going to adhere by the ordinance, and they will not be taken off their clothes. The customers may be upset, but they're going to adhere by the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, City Exhibit 6 from the suspension meeting is the same as J, and it is bigger. I'm going to show him page 2.
I'm done with the questions at this point on that, so don't worry about it at this point. That's okay. All right, thank you, Lieutenant Cardinelli. That's all the questions I had.
Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman, questions for Lieutenant Cardinelli?
Hi, good evening. After the shooting, what was the actions that the club did after that?
I'm trying to think. They shut down. Not a lot of people left, within a half hour or so, and they shut down a little while after.
Okay.
They weren't letting anybody else in the club. They were just letting people exit the club.
Okay. Do you remember the name of the manager that you were talking with?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
Do you
you.
remember the name of the manager you had spoke with?
No, I don't.
Do you know if he's in the room right now? If he's on any of the...
I don't know. Don't recognize
You
him.
don't recognize? Okay. Based on your experience, since you have his cell phone number, Frank's cell phone number, based on your relationship you have with the city as a business owner and police department, the conversation you had, explaining to him about the adult entertainment, do you believe that he genuinely was unaware of what may have been going down or going to go down?
Haven't spoken with him many times, and he reassuring me that they were going to remain clothed or in bikinis or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When I served him Saturday, I said, Frank, he's like, I don't understand what went wrong. This was not the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But, I made it clear enough that we were going to be in there, undercover was going to be in there. I would be coming in periodically, which I do with all the clubs.
He was okay with that? He didn't say no, or he was more than
No,
okay
he
with
was
you
okay
going
with
in
it.
there?
He was okay with that.
Okay. And my last question is, what kind of security checks did you see happening? Can you detail what you saw?
There was 3 or 4 security personnel at the front door. They were patting people down. I don't know how good of a job they were doing, but they were attempting to pat people down. And when I walked through, I did see some security staff. There was people at the door, and then there was some security staff around.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. On that, you said they had people patting them down? A hand pat?
Before admitting, yeah, in the front door outside.
Okay. Well, did they use any sort of wands or anything for?
I don't remember if I saw any wands.
All right. Do you actually see any narcotics use? I know you said you smelled it, but did
I
you see
smelt it, but I did not see any use.
Is there a history of incidents with this establishment?
We have not had, I'm in charge of all the clubs pretty much, and I check them all every year. We haven't had problems up until that night at Congress.
So this is basically a first offense since they've had this
That was,
stand license.
yes.
Any history of food trucks being out there that are not attributable to?
No.
So the food trucks was the first time you've seen it out there?
Yeah, they advised they were told to come from Vegas staff.
When you said they advised who, the food trucks or?
Yeah, I talked to the operators of both food trucks.
Okay. And that's good. How many food trucks were out there?
There was 2 food trucks out there. I talked to both of them, told them they weren't allowed to stay, and they packed up shortly thereafter and left.
Okay. You didn't see any full nudity?
I did not.
And you saw no money being exchanged?
I did not.
No VIP section for private dances or anything like that?
No.
So everything was out in the open?
Yes.
The shooter he wasn't an employee or agent of Congress that night? He was just a patron?
From my understanding, yes.
And that gun never got inside the club? Their security prevented that from coming in?
Yeah, I believe, from what I was told, that he went to his trunk. Maybe that's where he got it from, but the reports may have better on that.
Did you have any officers working a detail that night?
Yes.
Were they working as a detail officer or were they working as undercovers?
No, he was a detail. He's the actual one who confronted the suspect.
So you had, and how was he dressed?
In full uniform.
Like your uniform today?
Yes.
And then you had 2 other officers undercover, or I don't want to say how many, but you had other undercover officers in the establishment?
Yes.
And did they indicate that they actually saw narcotics use?
I'm not sure what the report said. I didn't read them.
Okay.
I don't remember.
You don't remember, that's fine. Did they indicate to you that they saw full nudity or money being exchanged?
I don't know about full nudity or money, no. I just know that they talked about the one lady that was leaning against the guy by the bar.
When it comes to requiring security checks by their security staff, does the City of Sunrise advise them how to properly do a security check?
When you're saying security check, are you talking pat-downs?
Pat downs to properly search?
No, we don't instruct them how to search, no.
Does our code or anything, if you know, require them to have a certain type of security officer that could pat them down?
They have to be a certain class security.
Okay, do we know if they had the correct, do you know what class it's supposed to be?
I don't know the number. Do you know? I think it's a Class D, do I want to say? Or?
Class D?
I believe it's a Class D that they have to be.
How many security did you see that night?
Oh, I saw at least 4 or 5 out there within the restaurant. I mean,
So 4 to 5 security provided by Congas, correct?
Correct.
Plus our one detail officer?
As well as a detail officer, yes.
Okay. And you did inform them prior to that there would be undercovers going in and out throughout the day? I
did.
You said that Mr. Baumann, did you talk to him on the phone that night, or did he come to the scene at the...
I spoke to him the next day.
You spoke to him the next day?
Yes.
Okay, and he was upset?
He was.
All right. Those are my questions for Mr. Cardinale. Ms. Baumann, do you have any questions for Mr. Cardinale based on the questions you've heard from the commission? For the record, she's shaking her head no. To my colleagues, any other questions for Mr. Cardinale? Excuse the way. Go ahead,
I may want to clarify some. Lieutenant Cardinale, in the meeting, was there the meeting on August 5th, was there a discussion and concern about a possible opening at 5 p.m. on Friday, August the 6th?
Yes.
And did you advise Mr. Baumann and the attorney that was there, Mr. Aronson, or did Ms. Lay advise them, were you present when they were advised, that was not permitted to open at 5 o'clock?
They advised them they were not allowed to be open by, I think it said noon, and they weren't allowed to open till 5. I think the flyer said noon, and they were not allowed to open till 5.
Well, your discussion then, did you have further discussion with them about a possible open bar that was either advertised or discussed in the meeting? Period of time for an open bar?
I discussed it with them.
What was that discussion?
I believe it was open bar was going to be from 6 to 10, and I said 4 hours for an open bar is a very long time for people to consume alcohol for free. So they actually, at first, the lawyer said, well, we'll make sure it gets, or I think it was a lawyer. Somebody said, we'll make sure that the staff gives it to them slowly. But then, speaking with Frank, they didn't open till 8 that night, and they reduced it to a 2-hour open bar.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Your excuse, Mr. Cardinale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to call Chief Rosa because I think he can clarify one issue in reference to the round and the weapon. So it'll be just brief.
Yep. Come on up, Chief.
I'm not going to ask if you're certified as a police officer. I think you're known to the commission. You've heard the testimony here today. You heard about a 223, or a round, I should say. You're familiar with the investigation in this case, correct?
Yes, I am.
Specifically as to that issue, explain to the commission, if you can, what a 223 round is and the type of weapon or weapons that can expel it.
223 round is, I think, most commonly known as a round that can be fired out of a rifle. But this same round can also be fired out of a specific type of handgun.
In reference to this case, did you review video, and other officers review video, but you personally review video to determine if a rifle could be seen in the video when the round was discharged?
Yes, I reviewed body camera video, and no rifle was seen in the video. But the suspect the suspect in the shooting did have an object in his hand, so it could have been one of these handguns that fires a 223 round.
Based on that, and I know that was later, when the reports were originally written, all the officers were going on was the .223 round, correct? And they surmised from that it was most likely a rifle.
Yes, the officers believe it's a rifle. That belief is generated based off of 2 objects were found in the area of the shooting, a live .223 round and a spent casing for a .223 round.
And then upon reviewing the video, based on that, did that affect your opinion or the officer's opinion as to whether or not it was definitively a rifle or, as you said, a handgun that can expel that round?
I don't think it was definitively a rifle. It could have been either a rifle or a handgun.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions. That was my questioning for the chief.
Okay, so
Mr. Douglas, floor is yours.
I'm glad we got the clarification, whichever way this goes, because I heard I was operating on the belief that we were definitive that somebody had an assault rifle out there that night. So, to be clear, we don't know.
So there were witnesses that stated they saw a rifle, but we're not able to definitively say if it was a rifle or a handgun.
Has anybody been apprehended for this shooting?
Yes.
Were we able to determine post-apprehension whether he had a rifle?
We were not.
Is this the subject of a criminal charge at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so I won't get any further into that. But as far as the police and our own agents are concerned, we don't know for sure that there was an assault rifle.
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Commissioner Scudo, questions?
No.
I'm sorry, no?
No.
Mayor Ryan, any questions for Chief Rosa?
Just very briefly, Chief, the type of handgun that can utilize a .223 round, what is that?
I don't know the name of the model of the handgun.
If I was to say a Sig Sauer P556, would that sound familiar?
That does sound familiar, yes.
And that can feature a military-grade barrel, is that correct?
Yes, I believe it can.
Whether it was a long gun, that is an assault rifle as we were using it, or the Sig Sauer or the model that can expel a .223, does that alter the lethality of the .223 round?
No, absolutely not. It does not.
It has the same velocity and lethality, whether coming out of an assault weapon or out of the Sig Sauer, correct?
There's a lot to velocity and barrel length, but I believe that as it's exiting the barrel, the velocity would be the same or very similar, whether it be a rifle or a handgun.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman, any questions for Chief
Just for
Rosa?
clarity, so there was no gun found at all?
Law enforcement did not recover any gun, no.
So potentially there's a second person that may have shot and took off? Is that what's being about? I'm just curious.
We've established up to the standard of probable cause that the person that we took into custody did fire a round.
But there is nothing found?
That's correct.
If I may clarify, he was captured later. He was not, he fled the scene,
Thank
and
you.
it was times later.
Thank you. That's
Yes.
what
I want to ask something else, if I may.
Let her finish.
No, that's all I wanted to clarify. You're good.
Are you done? All right, Commissioner Douglas, go ahead.
I'm here and I'm struggling over this because it sounds to me like we were as close as being able to bang on the window of a guy who just fired off rounds in a crowd. Did we chase the guy?
Yeah, I'll explain my observations of the officer that confronted the suspect in his vehicle's body camera. So the body camera footage starts, and you only have video. The audio starts about approximately 30 seconds after the video starts. So the audio started when the officer heard the shot fired, and the officer was, approximately 50 yards away. You can tell by the video, the officer was talking to another person, they flinched. That's the moment the round was fired. The officer then faced in the direction of where the round was fired, or at least he heard the loud noise. and there was people, there was other people pointing, and they were given direction of somebody fired the round. And I believe where the rifle issue came up is someone said someone fired from a rifle. The officer, the suspect was pointed out to the officer, and the officer started approaching, giving some verbal commands, and the suspect was outside of his vehicle. But you only see him for just a short period of time in the video, and then he gets into a white car with very dark tinted windows. The officer at that point had closed the distance in an attempt to detain the suspect, but the suspect was inside the car, and from the video you can't see in the car, so the officer banged on the window in an attempt to remove the suspect from the car, but at that same moment the suspect fled the scene, and although we did look for him, he was out of the area. We did get a good tag, though, and then through some other investigative techniques, we were able to identify who was driving the car.
So this is in the parking lot, because I heard the car was parked in the first spot up front. So the officer, I guess, by the stretch of any imagination, if the car was in that same location at the time the officer approached him, or at least when he banged on it, he would have had to exit the parking lot,
Yes. The officer was the detail officer for the club that night, and he was on foot patrolling around the front area.
I only ask this because I'm wondering why we don't have some rounds in that car ourselves. I mean, somebody just fired off shots, and I'm close enough to have banged on his window, and I don't.
So although I saw in the body camera video what I believe could have been a handgun, the officer did not see it at that moment. So the video saw more than the police officer saw at that moment. So although he did have his weapon out, I didn't, give all those details, but he did approach with his weapon drawn. He had the suspect at gunpoint as he was closing this gap. But the officer didn't actually see the gun. So even though he was being pointed out as having fired rounds, I think the officer correctly made the decision not to fire at that moment because he wasn't able to confirm this was the person that had just employed deadly force, potentially.
And at that point, we weren't sure if anybody got shot either because everything was just unfolding.
That's correct.
So we could have had a murderer just drive out the parking lot without being apprehended.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't just let him drive out. We definitely looked, searched, but we did not find the vehicle that night.
Call-outs, APBs, roadblocks, anything?
Every investigative technique that we have to either find or stop a car, including use of technology.
Okay. All right, thanks, Chief.
I don't have any questions. Mrs. Baumann, any questions for Chief Rosa? All right.
Yeah. Those license plate readers would be really handy right now. I'm just saying.
Chief Rosa, you're excused. Are you done with the witness?
Yes, may he be excused.
Yep, you're excused, Chief Rosa. Mr. Osmond, floor is yours.
That would finish my presentation upon the admission of City Exhibits 1 through 6 from the previous August 30th hearing, City's Composite Number 7 with the attachments A through O, all of which are admitted and not contested. The credibility of what's in the reports and stuff obviously is for you all as the fact finders. But based upon that, I believe there is substantial competent evidence for the Commission to vote to revoke and support the City staff recommendation if that's your choice. That's what I was hired to do, present substantial competent evidence one way or another, and I believe based on the record here that in fact it does exist.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Ms. Baumann, did you get a chance to review this record? You're shaking your head yes? Okay, do you agree to it coming into evidence again? Is there an agreement or stipulation?
Did you agree to the entry of all these exhibits in the last hearing and this hearing as well?
So you acknowledge that we can rely on this? Okay. So I'm going to accept the staff records into evidence, incorporate the referred to files from the Police Department Community Development into the record. We have the licensee presentation. If you'd like to make a presentation, Mrs. Baumann, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and we'll allow you to call any witnesses and present any evidence you'd like to offer regarding the emergency or the revocation of your extended hours license. So if you'd like, the floor is yours.
Sherry Baumann.
Sure. Do you need some water? Give her some water.
No, it's not water. It's just chemo messed my voice up. I'm Sherry Barman, and my address is 9821 Northwest 2nd Street, Plantation, Florida.
Mr. Lebowski, would you just water, please? Take your time.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Sherry Barman. I became the owner of Congas 4 years ago, and we've run it without incident involving Sunrise Police, except for that one single night where we chalked up a list this long of incidents that we've never had, and all has been corrected. Everything we have revoked back to what we did, reverted back to what we were doing. We acted out of desperation. 2 big C's approached us before we made the decision of inviting Vegas, or they approached us. 2 big C's happened in my life, Corona and my big C. And I've learned one thing from this whole debacle: never act on desperation. Desperation got me here. And for that, I use this word very sparingly. I am enormously sorry. I apologize to the chief and all the police, and I know some of them know me because they come to the club. To Mr. Scruto, to Mr. Douglas, Mr. Ryan, Mr. Korsh, Ms. Guzman, forgot your name, and the entire city of Sunrise. We made a mess. I'm sorry. As I said, I use this word very, very cautiously. I don't like to use it unless I'm truly, truly sorry. And I mean it from every fiber of my body. The club cannot function. We cannot, it's unsustainable to operate the way it's going right now. And, you know, if we don't get the 4 o'clock, it's end. That's tonight, this is the end of it. It's, you know, I'm at your mercy. As the good grandmother said earlier, this is a compassionate city. And I appeal, I implore, I beseech your compassion. This is where I get my food from. I'm going to be blunt. This is where I get my food from. This is where I eat. This is my business. And I'm in no health situation. You know, my situation is not the best. I'm not using it. It's not a crutch, but it's a fact. I implore you, I'm at your mercy at this point. I thank you for your ear. The city, I apologize to the city. As I said, I use this word. I don't like to use the word sorry, because when I say I'm sorry, I'm genuinely sorry, and I'm enormously sorry for what we have put the city of Sunrise through. And I have some of my staff there. They are here to support, you know, because they're affected as well. It's not just me, but I affect the city, I affect them. And this is not the end, because I have 2 children who I have to tell this to, because this is my legacy. So I have a guilt that I have to carry, because I'm not prepared to tell them, your mother stood up in front of the city of Sunrise because we made a bad decision. So I have a guilt that I have to share. I'm not ready to share it with them. I have to take, this is what I'm carrying with me. So it's not the end here. I thank you for your ear.
All right, one moment, ma'am. Mr. Rossman, you have any questions?
Just one, Deputy Mayor. Ms. Baumann, the City Exhibit 4 from the August 30th meeting, if I may approach just to show you.
Yeah.
This is titled resignation letter. It's the resignation of, I'm probably mispronouncing the name, but Hoa, H-O-A, Duong, D-U-O-N-G. Was that the only other partner or owner of Congas along with yourself?
Yeah.
Were there any other partners involved at the time when this incident happened on August 6th?
No, it's just the two of us. But it was just us.
Just us, meaning yourself, and the person listed in this resignation letter, City's Exhibit 4?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Hold on, hold on, ma'am. Let me see if my colleagues have any questions. Anyone? Mayor Ryan, any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Rossman. Mr. Rossman, can you just help me to understand, is there any dispute that the control of the operation or management had been relinquished to another person or entity?
There is...
Shared.
Ms. Baumann is using the term shared. Mr. Aronson, in his conversations with me prior to him being dismissed, referred to the person in the resignation letter as the managing partner. I don't know if that was being used in the legal sense. That's how it was represented to me. The resignation letter, City's Exhibit 4, shows just that the person, that she is resigning as a shareholder and board of director for Congas Entertainment Corp. But it doesn't list managing partner or anything of that nature. So no, Mr. Mayor, it does not delineate whether or not that person was the sole managing partner. And from what Ms. Baumann is saying, it sounds to me like she's saying they had shared control.
No, they had
And this is to my point. Is it your position, right? Let me give you a hypothetical. A licensee decides they're going to bring a promoter in, and they relinquish control to the promoter for the night, and staff has traditionally said that that would be a violation of Section 311. Is that the same situation as having brought in a managing partner who is now in control of the operation, who then does something inappropriate? Do you understand my question?
I believe I do, and I believe the answer is yes. I would find, and to clarify something else, Ms. Baumann just said that the Ms. Duong had managing control, but nonetheless, I would agree with your premise that if I were an owner and I brought in a promoter and gave the promoter control of my business or club for a night or two, I would still be responsible for the actions of the promoter. But it would be a violation of the ordinance as far as giving up the control, to answer your question, in my opinion.
Well, this is where I wonder whether we have a gap here, both factually and legally. If the promoter release of operation, relinquishing control of the operation to a promoter is a violation of 311, and we accept that, is it your position that simply because one of the partners who has control of the operation, nothing's relinquished, they are a partner, they are an owner, they're operating the business? Are you saying that those two scenarios are the equivalent of what 311 finds as a violation?
I believe they are, in my opinion.
Ms. Kislin?
I think that's a decision
Kislin,
of the commission.
Do you take the same position? Does staff take the same position?
I don't have a position on it. The code says, I think it's a position for the commission to decide as to whether the facts fit the code.
Well, let me say it differently, because I'm not trying to get you to make a decision for us. What I'm trying to identify is whether or not there's a vagueness in this Section 311.
But do we need to decide that tonight, Mayor? Or could we bring this back for...
I know, I'm trying to avoid asking questions of the balance. That's why I'm asking this, Commissioner. That's all.
Okay.
I want to just get a sense, and then I'll deal with it separately. I want to understand, so it makes a difference to whether I'm going to ask any questions.
So, point of information.
Is staff taking the position that 311 means that just because one partner who had operational control and is part of the establishment is the one managing one night, that would be a violation of 311?
So 311
A5D is what I'm specifically looking at.
Now I lost it.
And just so we're clear, what it reads is the licensee or applicant, okay? Licensee is Congas, is that right? It's the actual entity.
Right, they shall not
With contingent approval, shall not relinquish control of the operation or management or establishment to any other person or entity. If the person that was running it that night is part of the licensee, that is part of Congas, then there can be no relinquishment to another person or another entity. It may be a bad decision by that manager. It may be a bad decision to bring in that partner. But when they're a partner of Congas, they are part of the licensee, correct?
I would answer that yes to your question, but I think the testimony that came out tonight is different than the testimony that came out at the suspension hearing.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, I think that that may have been partially my fault in giving short shrift to this legal issue, and that it's not just the testimony that came out tonight. It's also, as Mr. Watson pointed out, the person who resigned from Congas, that is the entity that has the license. So I don't have any questions for Ms. Baumann. I feel comfortable where I am. Thank you.
There are specific findings in Ms. Lay's report that's Exhibit 7. It's on page 5 of 8 of her report relating to that specific.
Well, I get that, and Commissioner Douglas was right to raise some concerns perhaps on the stipulation and whether it was as precise and whether it really, and I'm not putting words in his mouth, it did cause me to go back and read a little bit to the stipulations, and I read what is in, and I'll save my comments as Commissioner Douglas point out. This is for discussion, but I have no questions for Ms. Baumann.
Given that, I think there may be a point in time when we want to bring this ordinance back outside of this issue that's for us today to make sure we've closed any gaps. But, it's uncontroverted. There are violations of the ordinance. Whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, doesn't really matter. It doesn't take.
I'm not trying to discuss it right now. I was just trying to make a decision whether to ask Ms. Baumann any questions. I have no questions for Ms. Baumann.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I don't want to do a midnight again tonight, so hopefully.
That's what I was trying to avoid.
I just have a couple questions. I'm on the fence. What assurances can you provide that this will never happen again? If by some chance that we exercised compassion and mercy as you're asking for and give you a second chance, what assurances can you give the city that something like this will never happen again?
It's not going to happen. We revert back to what we did. We did Latin, and it's not going to happen because I have my staff. They're not going to allow it. They're upset with me as well. And I can assure you, if I have to be out there, I will be there. And I am not an easy person. If I was there, I can say that would not have happened that night. Somebody, either the police would have come and take them away before you got to them. Because I can be quite hard because I tell people my name is my legacy. And I fight for my name. It's very important to me.
Who's going to be running the place if we are to allow you?
Me and Lois. He's a class D security. He's the manager with me. He's there more than me.
Well, that's my question. It sounds like you gave away.
Yes, I did.
That night, and no one was there.
I did.
But you understand running a business with this type of license is a privilege.
I understand, and
it's your privilege.
I agree. I accept that responsibility. I know it's a privilege, and I misused it.
I mean, your husband was managing. Is he going to be back running this?
He'll assist me. He does help me because of my health situation. I have issues to take care of. But Lois...
Is he on the same page with you?
Who?
Your husband?
Yes, or he'll be out. He'll be gone. And I'm dead serious because I am me. I stand alone. When I look in the mirror, I see me.
The city spent a lot of money.
I know, and
Is there,
I don't know what to say. That
are you in a,
I understand that because I'm running a business. I understand the loss of money.
are you in a position to compensate the city back for some of the time that it spent? Or
Sorry?
would you be in a position to reimburse some of the resources and money that the city spent?
Honestly, right now, no.
If we were to allow you to pay it back over time?
I'll try.
I'm not saying we're going there, we haven't got to that part, but at least I wanted to hear your answers to those questions before we make our decision. I don't have any other questions.
I just want to say at the last meeting, what was brought up from yourself and from your husband was that you told him not to do it.
We fought again.
I'm just saying, that's what he said.
Yeah,
He said, she told me not to do it.
Yes, I
Right. But because he's still in control, he did it anyway. And
Well,
that's why we're here today.
because
He knew the lawyer that he had. I'm just saying, he knew the lawyer that he had. He knew the people from when they tried to come to this city before at Hot Shots. He knew them then. He knew the lawyer, and now they came here. We are compassionate. And we do give you the benefit of the doubt. We called you in advance multiple times. The leader of the city, besides us, the city manager, called you to let you know of the relationship that we had with you, to give you the opportunity to really rethink what you wanted to do. It was July 28th that I found out that you guys were coming. I know Sal for probably 30 years, who owned Vegas Cabaret. They told me they were coming to Sunrise. The city manager was informed. Staff was informed. We contacted you, gave you every benefit of the doubt before, but you blatantly came to the city with these partners and did what you did. And that's what it is. Yeah, we're compassionate. We may have had a good relationship with you, but you abandoned that relationship. Whether it was you as an officer, but it seemed like your husband took control of this and got you to this point.
Oh, wait, let's not make it personal.
Right.
Just ask the questions and let her go, and then
No,
you can
that's
say
it. I
whatever
just
you
wanted to say, at the last meeting, it was said.
I know, but it's her
Right.
husband. We can't,
I understand that, but I'm saying that was what was said. I told him not
ask
to
her
do it.
questions and then say whatever you want to say about testimony that came before you. But
No, I want to go by what occurred, what happened with staff, and this is it. That's all my comment.
All right. Does city staff have any questions?
Deputy Mayor, I have a question.
Certainly,
A
go ahead,
follow-up to just briefly. Ms. Baumann, you mentioned Lewis. Who's Lewis?
Lois is a manager / security. He's right here.
Was Lewis there on August 6th?
No, Lois was not there.
Why not?
The management, the new management, they brought their people. And Lois was supposed to be working the Saturday because Lois works, Lois has his other job and he works in the evening. And he had that Friday night off. But he was going to be there the Saturday. I don't know the dates.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Ms. Baumann.
All right.
if there's any further questions for her, please let her.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the script. I got it.
Yeah.
Does city staff have any questions for Mrs. Baumann?
I do not.
Mrs. Baumann, do you have any other witnesses or evidence or testimony that you'd like to present to the commission tonight?
No.
All right. Thank you. You can have a seat. I'll accept the license records into evidence. Now I'd like to open up to the public, for the general public, for a public hearing. So the general public may be sworn in, but is not required to be sworn. The general public is not required to be subject to cross-examination, and the general public may be requested to respond to questions from the commission. Is there anyone in the galley who wants to come up and speak on behalf of this item in front of us? Anyone in the galley? Last chance to come up for public hearing to speak. Come on up, state your name and your address, and the floor will be yours.
How are you? My name is Luis Nevares. My address is 8501 Southwest 16th Court in Davie, Florida, 33324. If by any chance you guys give us the chance to operate into 4, you know, I can't make a promise that that will not happen under my management as a manager and a head of security. Just wondering if you, by the love of God, if you guys could give us a chance. That's all I wanted to say. I don't like strip clubs, to be honest. I don't go out. I only work. And this is part of my life, you know. This is how I pay my bills. I need this. I got child support, you know, got a lot of bills to pay, and I need this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public who would like to speak regarding the suspension of Conga's extended hours license? Please approach the podium, state your name. Seeing no one approach, I will close the public hearing in the galley. Is there anyone on the telephone who would like to speak? Please identify yourself by the 5-star feature, and Tori will let us know if anybody has identified themselves.
Deputy Mayor, no hands are raised.
All right. Last chance for public input on this item. Anyone in the galley or anyone on the phone? If you're on the phone and you want to speak, 5-star. Tori?
No hands are raised.
And no one came forward, so we will close public hearing on this item. Is there anything city staff would like to add?
Nothing. Directly through special counsel anyway.
Is there anything the licensee would like to add? Mrs. Baumann, is there anything else you'd like to add right now? All right. Are there any more comments from the public? Again, before I close the public hearing, seeing none, I close the public hearing and bring the item back before the commission for discussion. Commission discussion.
All right, so I'm not going to haggle over whether they broke the law, violated the ordinance. I think that is pretty clear. The question is, having made that determination, whether we are able to exercise our discretion. The issue of the cost, I understand it costs a lot of money. Mr. Rossman is not cheap. But beyond Mr. Rossman, there is a public cost. There is the staff time. There's everything. Whether we shut them down or not, we'll never really recover that. So, you know, I consider everything that came before us, not least of which is the upfront contriteness that has been shown by the proprietor in front of me. If I had a historical background here that says, you know, we have been out there every Saturday, blah, 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 this and this and that, they've been doing it before, if this was an ongoing drain on our resources, I wouldn't even be considering any exercise of my discretion in favor of that. But, you know, as a lawyer, I've seen a lot of times where people who don't deserve grace get it, you know, because you're just in the business, especially when you do criminal defense, immigration defense, that kind of thing, you know, where judges exercise their discretion to allow somebody to remain in the country after they've committed crimes, or people are sentenced to various penalties less than what could have been brought to bear. I've seen people who is going to be sentenced to 3 months, and they ask for a furlough to go take care of their business affair, and the judge say, I'll give you 5 years, and when you come back in here to be sentenced and turn yourself in, I'll reduce it down to 3. I'm just going to put my position out there. I am prepared to, this is me, and this is not my decision alone, but if it were something I could do, I would hold this in abeyance, lift the suspension, have this come back before us when the renewal comes up next year, and see how they're doing. And that is how I'd vote on this. And I'll pass it off.
Commissioner Scudo.
I can't even imagine that knowing what happened and that we've been through this, knowing exactly what they did, knowing what they've known, dealing with who they dealt with, and for us to sit through this 2 times like this, staff testimony, we had to hire a lawyer. I mean, all of this, and now to give them, what is the chance to know that this gentleman can't come back? Now they have a 4 o'clock license. What I'm saying is, the problem that the city of Davie had with this was, once they had the 4 o'clock license, and he laid that out in that letter back to us, that everything that the chief said and did, he would be able to take this to court and keep them open until the litigation goes through. And that's what happened in Davie. They were able to keep the club open for years until it got to the court, where the city used hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight this. This gentleman does not go away. They are neighbors. They knew their kids played together. They knew what business they were in. The wife even said, I told him not to do it. And it just seems like Frank is getting a pass here. He's using his wife to get a pass.
We all do that.
No. Okay, but this is not right. You're the one who fights for the taxpayers' money. We had to waste $50,000 in hard cost. In hard cost. $50,000 we had to lay out because they decided, their employees that they have there now, with them right there, they sold the business. The new guy took over. They weren't working there. They're only working there now. What happened to all those people that they were employing back then that were the regular club? They all disappeared Friday. None of them were there, okay? Because they were gone. They were non-existent. The new people were the new owners for a strip club. Even at the meeting, they asked, could we build stages and poles? I mean, come on. I just, it's just sad that we have rules and regulations on our books. We make these people fill out applications for this license. It's a privilege. You get a driver's license, it's a privilege. You drink and drive, they take your license. Okay? Well, this was kind of like their drinking and driving. They lost their license. They lost their license. I mean, it was blatant from the start. We gave them every warning. Now we had to hire a lawyer. Our staff is right. Our staff is not incorrect. We did what we were supposed to, and now we want to give them a pass? I mean, it doesn't make sense that we're going to incur a hard cost of $50,000 out of pocket with overtime and with legal fees, and we're going to give them a pass for 6 months to see how they do? I mean, they made their choice. They sold their business. They sold it. They didn't want a Latin club no more, okay? So we're not fighting for a Latin club. They sold it. They didn't want the Latin club anymore, okay? They sold it to make money. Now all of a sudden, we want to go back to a Latin club. No, they want to sell it again once they get the 4 o'clock license, okay? I have compassion. I mean, you know, I understand what she's going through, and my family's going through it too. And you know, I work hard every single day, just like everybody else does. And I don't, you know, feel sorry for somebody for other reasons. Her husband has been running this business. He made all the decisions to do what he did. His wife told him not to do it. He did it anyway. You know, now they come before us and they want the security guy to run the whole place. So the security guy is going to be now the person who runs their business right now. I mean, it just seems that we're not going in the right direction. I just can't believe being up here and I'm supposed to watch the taxpayers. God forbid that my police officer went over to that window and he shot through the window. This would have been a cut case right now. We wouldn't even have 2 meetings about this right now, okay? I don't care whether it was a shot out of a rifle, whether it was a shot out of a handgun. He shot. He was still there. He could have took out one of our cops.
That can happen anywhere. That can happen.
Ms. Guzman, I'm speaking, okay? You'll have your turn, okay? You patronize the club, you post stuff for them.
Stop. No, we're not going there.
Okay, well, don't start this with this Latin stuff.
It has nothing to do with Latin.
Okay.
Hold on, guys.
I will
We're not
recess
going to
this
do that.
meeting.
It ain't
Don't cut
about
me
a
off,
Latin
okay?
club. It's
Don't
just a
cut me
business.
off.
You do it all the time. You just made one comment.
Good. So,
Hold on,
don't
order.
support that.
Commissioner Scudo has the floor. Go ahead.
Commissioner, keep on going.
So, listen, you guys could, you know, decide whatever it is, but I'm trying to do the right thing for the city, sitting up here, and somebody did this
We're
to
all
us.
trying to
Right,
do it.
exactly. But I'm saying blatantly, they did what they did. And after this, we're going to give them no repercussion? I mean, nothing? I mean, what is staff, I mean, next time this happens, they're going to be like, why should I go through all this work and present it to you? I did my job. I did everything I was supposed to.
The fact that staff presents something to us doesn't mean we have to go with it. That's why
I
we're
don't,
sitting up
Commissioner-
here.
Commissioner Douglas.
Exactly, okay,
Commissioner Douglas,
exactly.
please.
But this is something blatant. This is not something that's,
You're going to make this end up to be midnight, so
I'm
please.
just saying, this is not something that's,
Till midnight.
you know,
Till midnight.
I mean, come on. They knew exactly what they were
I
doing.
know you're passionate about it.
So, I just
I
can't
respect
see-
your views on
Right,
this, by the
I
way.
hear you. I'm not disagreeing with you. But I can't believe that somebody could just come before us and we're going to let them slide. And we have all
You
these
don't know
hard...
that's
No, I'm just saying.
Gentlemen, no back and forth. Let Commissioner Scudo.
So
and
you
then
know how I
I'll
feel
give
with
you an
this.
opportunity.
And you know what? I feel Frank did what he did. He knew what he was doing. He got in bed with people he should have never have gotten into. His wife told him not to do it, but he's the one who makes all the decisions. And you know what? He has to live with the decisions that he made. He made a wrong one, okay?
Okay.
But we don't have to give him the benefit of him making wrong decisions.
All right, so we have 3 other people. You don't know that's going to be the
Right, thank you.
Commissioner Scudo, are you done?
Yes.
All right. You want to go next?
Oh, no, the mayor's been going next every
Mayor
time after
Ryan,
him.
go ahead.
No, Assistant Deputy Mayor, I'll defer. Go ahead.
Assistant Deputy Mayor.
Okay. I believe this is an isolated incident. Ms. Baumann made a terrible deal with the devil, as she stated in the previous meeting. I believe Ms. Baumann was taken advantage of in her current health state, and with COVID hurting the business, she was in a state of desperation, as she mentioned earlier. I believe Mr. Baumann did not know and didn't think there would be nudity, as Officer Cardinale mentioned that he wholeheartedly believed that he was telling the truth. He was welcoming of our police and confident it was just a form of marketing. He was not afraid to let our police in the building if he knew there was going to be nudity. To my knowledge, he does not have social media and was trusting someone to draw in a crowd with a sexy picture because we all know sex sells. The bouncer security staff were doing their job patting down the club goers. And this is definitely a huge training opportunity because clearly they may have not been doing an efficient job. There have been no incidents in 4 years, as mentioned. I'm a supporter of Sunrise businesses. I think we all know that. Not just Gongas being a Latin club, but this goes into restaurants and any other business in Sunrise. I am not here to shut it down because I'm a commissioner. I'm here to do what we can to support it. I have visited the establishment after our meeting. Yes, I am okay to admit that. I wanted to see firsthand what has been going on since we had our meeting. And I will say I got to meet Mr. Lewis here. I was very impressed with his professionalism. The security, the staff inside the building, there were no poles. It was very clean. It reminded me of when I went to Congas 10, 15 years ago. And my mother was with me, and she felt safe. She even complimented after the fact that Mr. Lewis was very nice, and she was happy to have gone with me. Just pointing that out. So I didn't smell any cannabis, and this is just my experience, last week or 2 weeks ago that I went. So as I mentioned, I believe it's an isolated incident. I'm sorry that you guys are in this position. You seem like good people. If this was to happen again, whether it's your business or not, I mean, it's all determined case by case. So I don't think that if we're going to allow you to get your hours back, that Goldfingers thinks that he can do whatever he wants. You know what I mean? So I just think every case is different, my opinion. And that's pretty much it. That's where I stand.
Mayor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First of all, I want to thank my colleagues for having the patience to go through this tonight. No matter the passions raised by the city, it is evident that everyone is struggling to do the best thing for the city. And no matter the result, it'll be based on the sincere belief that their own vote is for that. And I'm honored to be working alongside you because you handled yourselves with dignity, and I'll use Commissioner Douglas's word, with grace as well. I would say that it was helpful to go through this evening. There were a number of contextual facts that came out where I could see someone finding that this might be an exceptional circumstance. It is clear that the police said we would be going in there, we'd have undercover. While there was a promise made by Frank, it's apparent, based on the weight of the testimony and the evidence, that he was not in a position to make a promise. In fact, nothing he said there really could have bound Congress. It appears that he had relinquished control to another entity. The weight of the evidence, both in terms of what staff knew prior to that meeting and what they learned after August 6th, in terms of the announcements, is that this was intended to be Vegas Cabaret. There's not a doubt about it. And that is supported by the transfer of ownership interest, it appears, or certainly control. There wasn't any testimony as to, and I'm accepting Commissioner Scuto's discussion in this regard. I'm not challenging him. There wasn't any testimony as to sale, but it would belie common sense to suggest that management control wasn't given for a price or a promise, at the very least. It is nice that they had the confidence that they said, the customers would be disappointed. That was just marketing. But again, Frank didn't know anything about it, had no social media, and while he had looked at that, he didn't express any shock or concern, and maybe because he had no control. And no matter what he said at that point, having potentially sold the interest in Congas, he didn't have an ability to control it. And the lawyer made representations, but we'll take that for what they were worth. There are a number of violations stated there, and I agree with Commissioner Douglas. It doesn't behoove us to go through that and make some arguments. The shooting, I want to be careful because it was terrible and it was a one-off, but it seems to be precipitated by the fact that the bouncer was trying to enforce the rule of don't take your drink outside. That doesn't, alter what happened, because we know that can, as was said by one of my colleagues, can happen anywhere. But it happened here, not because it can happen anywhere, but it happened here because control had been released. Whatever strength Lewis has and the prior security staff had, whatever types of events they were holding there, he relinquished control. He relinquished control to a group that included an open bar for a few hours, and who knows what role alcohol played in this. But everything that happened that night, and I'm not saying it was caused by Frank, I'm not saying he intended it. I don't think they are sincere, and I believe them that they feel bad about what happened. But they relinquished control, and I am struggling because I think Commissioner Scudo raises probably, at least for me, the most salient point. And that is, and I'm not suggesting that anyone else should find this persuasive, but for me, my concern is that if we do not revoke a place like Vegas Cabaret that had been displaced for whatever reason, will be hunting around for the next license. I will assume that Congos would not be so brazen to again sell that interest, though it could be argued that if a litigation posture was to be adopted by an adult entertainment group, as they did in Davie, which ended up costing Davie quite a bit of money, that they could feel like we could come back in and then we can litigate the substance of all this. But setting Congos aside, it would certainly create a challenge for any other struggling business that has what we now can understand how valuable is a 4 o'clock license, and that they would try to run the gap in, Section 311 and relinquish control. And for me, that's what this all comes down to. It is certainly possible that instructions were given to the management, at least on that night. It would be common sense on that night, telling the dancers, telling the entertainers, telling the entertainment, whatever you do tonight, do not get nude. You can wear your bikini, but don't get nude. You're going to have undercover in here. They've told us they're going to be here. Don't do it. It would belie common sense to suggest that they wouldn't have tried to avoid it. But, of course, these situations can be a little bit uncontrollable at 1:30 in the morning and late in the evening. Alcohol, disappointed patrons, as the lawyer had said, pressuring, offering money, whether seen or unseen. So at the end of the day, I struggle with this, and I think they are sincere people, and I've always enjoyed my exchanges with Frank through COVID. I understood how they were struggling, and they had a big footprint. I expressed last time my disappointment is at a personal level that Frank didn't share with anyone that he had given up control to this group. Didn't whisper in Lieutenant Cardinelli's ear and said, look, let me tell you what I'm struggling with. I sold part of the interest, and these guys are coming in, and I'm doing everything I can. Can you please call me if there's anything that goes on? I can't be there, but call me if something is amiss, because I'm doing everything I can. I'm going to find a way to get somebody in there to try to monitor this, because I'm worried about it. Maybe they're not telling me the truth. That didn't happen. It was an outright relinquishment of control that may have been a sold interest. And as Commissioner Douglas has said and others have said, we probably need to talk about this ordinance and its amendments later on. But for the purposes of this evening, I'm going to support revocation, and I'm going to support it without probation. I feel that we are creating a risk that is far too great, that will be difficult to manage, and offer opportunities for other establishments to try to run as close as they can to this. We know that Davie ended up extending lots, I don't know if it was millions or whatever, to buy them out or to get rid of establishments that they didn't want. And once in, comments of First Amendment and rights and expression and all that become very difficult. We've succeeded in trying to avoid this. And, as John Brooks often lectured and told me separately about how impressed he was that the commission had generated this extended hours license ordinance that gave him the authority that provided the opportunity to correct from years past of problems, and what a powerful tool this was. It is unfortunate that the Congress team, the family there, would have to pay the consequences of this. But they relinquished control, and I cannot support probation. So I understand why my colleagues can, and I don't fault them for it, because I do believe it's a close call. can't sleep with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've been up here 8 years, a little over 8 years, and this is the first time we've done a license revocation while I've been on here. I'm too old to go to the clubs. I haven't been to your club. I don't frequent any nightclubs. It's not my thing anymore. When I was young, I did that, but I'm growing up.
I'm not young anymore.
I'm saying all I'm saying is I don't go to clubs. So for anyone in the public that thinks I go to clubs, I'm just letting you know up front. You know, as I listen, I hear a 2-2. And you know what? I'm glad it's a 2-2 right now. Because that's sending a message. Do we have a firm hand or a big heart? That's what we're facing with. After my review of the evidence, the stipulation by the parties in the testimony tonight, which is basically the same evidence that was introduced on the August 30 hearing to uphold the chief's suspension, I do find, based on the evidence submitted and the joint stipulation entered into by the parties, that the city has met its burden to revoke your extended license if we choose to. But is that the appropriate remedy? I'm torn. There's aggravating factors. There's your attorney's fees, the cost, the money spent by the city. There's the fact that this could have been a potentially catastrophic incident. I think Frank and yourself, Mrs. Baum, stuck your head in the sand not knowing what was going on. That should have been a red flag, but I also think that was done out of desperation. I find it aggravating that staff met you and made it crystal clear that there was going to be no adult entertainment. I find it aggravating council's letter to the commission. Had the shooter come out of your establishment with the gun, this would be a no-brainer for me. But I also see the mitigating factors. I take into consideration the resignation of Ms. Duong and the subsequent changes to your organization. I admire you for withdrawing council's arguments and accepting responsibility, not only tonight and at the prior hearing. I do find this a first offense, and there's been no history or repeated violations that's been brought in front of this commission for testimony. I do find you, Ms. Brahman, to be very remorseful for your conduct. I do find that you were acting out of desperation, and I do accept your apology. I understand you can't give me any physical assurances or money to recover these costs. But you really put me in a difficult position. I'm glad we heard the testimony about the searches, or the pat-down searches being done. Although they may not have been up to standard, I hope if you are given the chance to continue operation, that's something that'll be addressed with your security. I also note that the testimony that I heard was that the dancer was in a bikini and she was pulling, or her breast was partially exposed to the side. I also note the testimony was we smelled, not seen, the narcotics. So again, I do find competent, substantial evidence. I'm willing to stick my neck out for you. Do not embarrass me. Do not come back in front of this commission again, because I will be the first person leading the charge against you. So I'm fine to go with Commissioner Douglas's proposal and find the competent substantial evidence, but I'll hold it in abeyance, the vote, if that's how we wish to choose going forward. So those are my comments and my position. I'll open it back up to my colleagues for further discussion.
All right, so between Kim and the city manager, procedurally, if the commission chose, obviously there's a split, but 3 people have expressed a desire to possibly put a structure in place to hold it over the heads of the entity going forward and bring this back before the commission instead of making this an administrative renewal, that it actually comes back before the commission when it comes up for renewal. How could we do that to effect that desire tonight?
Ms. Kislin.
I'm thinking we need voluntary commitments from the license entity, because we can put it in a resolution, but we need something from them that they've agreed to be bound by these.
I mean, if we don't vote on this tonight, we just...
No, we're just not. I think what I would be suggesting is we would lift the suspension to allow them to carry on at 4, but these proceedings tonight will be held open.
Okay, so what's your question to me then?
Can that be done?
But you asked about other conditions.
Well,
I'm just
I
trying
think
to,
the
I'm just trying to understand so I can give you a complete answer.
Okay, so to the extent that typically a renewal is kind of a staff level process where the chief and, it happens at that level. What I want is for it to be brought to the commission when the time comes for renewal. So we can maybe, talk to staff about their experience from here on until that point.
I mean, we could amend Section 3 of the resolution that's proposed for you right now, which goes through the history of everything, and then it finds that, Section 2 finds that the City Commission reviewed the report, and the amended report prepared by the Director of Community Development, conducted a public hearing on the Community Development Director's recommendation to revoke the Conga's extended hours license. Section 3 presently says, the City Commission determines that Conga's extended hours license shall be revoked. So, I mean, we could change that to say that Conga's extended hours license that the suspension from August 30 shall be lifted, and the commission determines that it's going to hold a decision on tonight in abeyance until the renewal in April, and then the commission would be the one, I guess they would still apply to community development for their renewal, but then instead of community...
It comes to us for decision.
I don't, is community development recommending?
I would propose that we would bring it like standard new one.
So she's...
I can't hear you, Ms. Lee.
And I'm
so
saying
sorry.
she would propose they would bring it like a standard new one, like a new establishment.
Yeah, I would place it on the agenda like a new establishment with a staff report and all the backup information for the commission to review.
Okay. All right. And
Commissioner Douglas, can I offer a
Sure, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mayor.
a suggestion? I want to help facilitate what you're trying to do, and I want us to do it in a way that we think it through. Part of the concern, I think, that some of us who were in support of revocation are worried about items that may not be directly covered by the ordinance now. And as was said, it may be wise to table this, I'd like to see where the weight is going, to allow staff to work out the details of what that stipulation would look like, rather than simply putting them back in the same position before, where we may want voluntarily a little more teeth. Like, for instance, and I just offer this and then I'll close my comments, the idea that they would transfer any ownership interests, while it really, I'm not so sure that 311 covers that as well as we would like. because of what we've seen. That doesn't mean they couldn't voluntarily agree to that as a condition of what you're trying to accomplish, Commissioner Douglas. So I offer that as perhaps
I
maybe
could
you need
accept
to
that if we could
get-
find a way to immediately lift the suspension pending. We could bring this back earlier than next year. We could table this tonight with the lifting of the suspension, bring back a stipulation at the next commission meeting to tie this all up.
Well, I don't think you really need to do
Right.
anything because we already have rules on the books.
Right.
That we're, no, I'm saying, that we're not following any of them, and you're leaving it up to us to make the vote. So it really doesn't matter what we do, because when they fill out the application, they go through staff, and staff recommends whether they should get it or not, and we're giving it to them anyway. So staff could recommend, don't give it to them. We could give it to them anyway. You guys just laid out all this evidence not to revoke it, and we're just saying, we don't care what's on the books or what you say, it's up to us to decide. So don't even bother to do anything because it's up to us to decide what we want. So to me, it's a waste to even have staff to bother to do anything with the 4 o'clock license. It should just be, if you want a 4 o'clock license, come to the city commission and ask the 5 of us whether we want to give it or not. Because whatever you got on the books, it doesn't matter.
Let me just offer this. I'm trying to, in terms of time, and trying to make sure that we impose additional conditions that may not be contained within our ordinance, but which may offer teeth to what is trying to be accomplished, as opposed to just saying you get a pass. I don't think anybody's saying you get a pass. I think what's been said is, for those who are, not willing to revoke tonight, are saying we're going to trust you, but you're going to have to verify, right? So the question is, I feel uncomfortable, and I'm not going to be in the majority anyway, but what I suggest is that it's a little uncomfortable trying to figure out what those additional teeth or conditions are. I think what Commissioner Douglas is suggesting is maybe there's a way to list it, if that's what the will of the commission was, for until the next meeting, for instance, let's say, where a conditional agreement could be worked out. If on the other hand, they're not being helpful in trying to address the concerns, particularly of those who were in support of revocation, then that's something the commission could consider, and then just call a vote on the revocation again. But
I like that.
I think that works for practical and other reasons. I started the meeting by asking if there was any stipulation or attempt to, so we could treat it as like when I just started the meeting, come back with some sort of an agreement that contains some voluntary undertakings and deal with the mayor's concerns about transfer of ownership and all of that, and for some automatic revocation provisions, et cetera, et cetera. And in the meantime, we allow them to move forward with their operations if that's the will of those who are in
What about a
support.
hard cost of money that we laid out? Are they willing to?
The money issue's settled. I mean,
Well, I'm just-
we're
okay, but-
already in that hole. It's not
Okay.
gonna change.
Let's let
What
staff
I'm
talk to
saying
them
is,
about that.
what is it that they want to say that they want to pay back our legal fees or something over the
I'm not
6
going
months?
there. I'm not going there.
Okay, well, I mean,
Let's let staff work on this
everybody's struggling.
between now and the next.
Yes, Joey, but
Right.
I'm not. I'm not gonna go there.
Okay, well, then I'm just saying is, then why we bother to give this teeth or
Well, we
anything?
can call a vote then.
I'm just saying.
And you vote, but
I'm just saying, why are we asking to put teeth in something that we're going to decide whether we want to do it or not? Giving it teeth for the staff, it didn't go anywhere. It didn't help us in any way. It went to the
Here's where it
benefit of
helps
them.
us. If we call a vote right now, it's not going to get revoked. We're going to work on a hodgepodge of potential conditions for the next couple of hours. And maybe it works, and I'm on your side on this. I am supportive of revocation for other reasons that I didn't even state. But my point being, if we're going to, if the majority is going to lift this, they're better. I'm advising, and I think everybody wants there to be
what the
additional
mayor says
voluntary
If you call a vote now, you get a 3-2 and nothing.
I'm just saying.
Right, that's my point, Commissioner Douglas.
Even
That's
vote
my
on
point.
it.
We
I'm
don't get-
supporting what you're saying,
Hold on.
Mayor.
Order.
Mayor, I'm supporting what you're saying. I'm telling Joey that this work,
got you.
at least
Okay.
we get something. Get them to come back with a voluntary agreement. Then just vote on
I
it
apologize
now
for
with
interrupting.
nothing.
I apologize. That's
Okay, but they're here right now. We had the lawyer contact them this week.
That's fine,
And just
Joe.
to see what they wanted to do.
They're here, and I'm
Okay,
glad they came,
so
and
what
I'm
did-
glad we
okay,
went through
I'm
this.
saying, since we've wasted all this time, okay, and staff, what are they willing to consent to anything tonight, and then use that as a basis going forward?
We'll put it on paper.
Let's
maybe
give staff
2-3
an
hours.
opportunity to work through the issues, and we'll come back at the next meeting and
Okay, so let me ask something. How can we lift, this is not on as an item for lifting the suspension. How do we achieve these two things? Lifting the suspension tonight and tabling this meeting till this item?
Ms. Kislin or Mr. Lebowski? Anyone?
Does it automatically was it only suspended until today's meeting? Does it automatically get reinstated if we don't continue the suspension? How does this work?
We wrote it that it was suspended through the completion of this hearing.
But the hearing wouldn't be completed
we're
if
not
we table
completing
it, so we
Correct.
need to find an affirmative way to lift it. So can we do
want
that
to,
by
The
just somebody making a motion outside of?
I think you could vote to amend the resolution that's before you,
Okay.
but I mean,
Why can't we
But
just-
we still
why
would
can't we
want to
just table
table
it?
this meeting.
Why can't we just table it?
This reso is supposed to close off this meeting, but we're not closing the meeting. We want to table this, but can we just make a fresh motion or tennis to lift the suspension and then table this as a separate meeting?
I'm thinking through that.
Okay, take your time. I just want to make sure we do it procedurally correctly.
Can I make a suggestion while we do that? Because I feel for Ms. Kislin calling on the fly, do you want to suspend this just for a moment, maybe clear up some of the other business, and then we can come back to that?
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
we could
good
do
idea.
that. Let's,
All right, so we're going to come back to that and go on to 16A. Agreement, resolution of City of Sunrise, Florida, approving an agreement to provide utility consulting services, City of Sunrise with Raftellus Financial Consultants, Inc., for the evaluation to consolidate the City of Sunrise and Town of Davie retail water and wastewater utilities, providing an effective date. City Manager Mark Lebowski, Tim Welch, Utilities Director. Is there a motion?
move it.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Seconded by Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing no one in the galley come forward, I will close the public hearing in the galley. Anyone on the phone wishing to speak on item 16? A, 16A, anyone on the phone, please hit 5-star and identify yourself. Tori?
I see no hands raised.
Seeing no one in the galley come forward, seeing no hands being raised, I will close public hearing. Any discussion on this item or a presentation from city staff?
No presentation. I'm here to answer any questions.
Any discussion amongst my colleagues on this item? Mayor Ryan, any discussion?
No comments, thank you.
All right, no discussion. Call the question.
Commissioner Scudo?
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah.
Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman? Yes. Deputy Mayor Kirch?
Yes.
Mayor Ryan?
Yes.
Item passes 5-0. 17, new business. A, support. A resolution of City of Sunrise, Florida, in support of the people of Cuba in their demand for freedom, condemning the tyrannical communist regime in Cuba and urging the President of the United States to support the Cuban people who bravely took to the streets, providing for distribution, providing for an effective date. Assistant Deputy Mayor Jacqueline A. Guzman. Ms. Guzman.
Thank you, Deputy. On July 11, 2021, Cuba saw the biggest protest in decades. Cuban people took out to the streets and expressed anger over long lines and shortages of food and medicines, as well as repeated electricity outages and demands of a faster distribution of the vaccination against COVID-19. There were also cries for a political change in a country governed by the Communist Socialist Party for over 62 years. We as a community should show support and make their cries for help known, as they are desperately trying to peacefully protest against this communist regime in favor of freedom through democracy, in favor of a free market economy, and in favor of civil liberties. The resolution in front of you for a vote today will send a message to the Cuban people that we are here to support in your fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guzman. Any other comments amongst my colleagues?
I don't know nothing about it to really support for or against. I mean, I haven't heard from Senator Scott or Marco Rubio or anybody from the state or to really know what I'm going to support. So,
as far as I'm concerned,
it's not like
this is a foreign policy issue for me. And as a municipal leader, I try to stay in my lane. That's just my view. As a lawyer, I try to stay intellectually honest. When you learn constitutional law, you learn about the different layers and branches of government. And, I've railed, whether I agree or disagree with what's going on in Cuba is not even the issue. I just think that oftentimes, and I see some of my municipal colleagues, they're on Facebook, they're jumping on every damn issue. They're trying to be state reps, they're trying to be county commissioners, they're trying to be senators, they're trying to be everything. And I stay in my lane because, for one, there are in fact times when, Henry Kissinger once said, America has no friends, they have interests. And he's a foreign policy guru. So what's our interest today is not our interest tomorrow and whatever. So that's why I generally leave it to the federal government to deal with foreign policy issues. In fact, I've actually railed when I see sometimes when, even at the state level, we pass laws that punish businesses for dealing with foreign governments and so on. Not because I think conceptually it's wrong, but I'm steeped in the law. And, I don't choose which law to follow. And I learned that the federal government has exclusive authority over foreign policy, and sometimes, these sanctions have been going on for many, many decades. I mean, there's sanctions, it's never been lifted. In fact, it's been toughened under President Trump. President Biden has done nothing to soften the approach. There's a lot of language in here which are strong and whatnot. But one thing my own anecdotal observations have been is that after 50 years, not one single member of the Castro regime was overthrown. And believe me, if we really, really, really wanted to, we probably would have. Nicolae Ceausescu is a tyrant that I speak about because he was one of those very, very, very strong tyrants, and the people lynched us. I've seen on TV in the 80s and 90s Fidel Castro walking up and down on the street. He doesn't have half the security. Nowhere close. People are all over him that our president have. They've killed a few of ours, even with their great security. So I'm wondering, how come how come nobody has taken out these guys themselves? And so I try to stay away from it because I just don't know enough. For me to sit here and say, the Cuban people are being oppressed, why haven't they lynched these guys and hung them up by their feet in the middle of Havana? But I don't want to weigh in as a municipal leader, telling them that this and that, because I think just like the puppy mill thing, sometimes people shop these things around, just trying to get us embroiled in in something that's it's not for us. And you know, anytime I find an opportunity to support one of my colleagues in things that are close to their heart and they're passionate about, I'll do that. But this is foreign policy stuff, and I just don't want to touch it. You know.
Mayor Ryan.
Thank you. There is no doubt that the lack of freedoms on the Cuban island are reprehensible, and anything we can do to offer support, not only to the Cuban people, but we see this throughout the world. And it may be a small gesture, it may be an ineffective gesture. I'm not sure I agree with all the language. Farcical is a word I haven't used in a long time, but I understand the message. And that is that we should be supporting the freedom of peoples all over the world, freedom of speech, freedom of choice to make decisions for themselves politically, democracy. And so while it may be an ineffective message, it may not move the needle, and I'm not sure the Secretary of State or the President will listen to Sunrise in this regard, but I'm willing to support the Assistant Deputy Mayor in this resolution because I do believe in the beauty of the Cuban people and what is possible, and so I will support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I also will support the resolution, but I agree with Commissioner Scudo as we start to put things on the agenda. I mean, anyone can put whatever they want, but I think it's behooving of us to stay in our lane and deal with the issues that directly affect.
I said that.
That's what I said. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner
I'm
Douglas.
not
My
Scudo.
apologies.
I'm
We don't
better
look
looking.
nothing alike.
You guys kept me here too late. My apologies. I looked at you and I called you Scudo, so I'm sorry.
Damn, I look that bad. Maybe you should put your glasses back on.
As
Maybe if they gave us
Commissioner,
our $50,000 back, we could pay for your glasses and your insurance dental plan or something.
let me get the false start out of the way
okay.
again, all
All
right?
right.
Remember, you're dealing with the backup quarterback. As Commissioner Douglas,
I think you're doing great, Deputy Mayor. Absolutely.
thank you. As Commissioner
He's a
Douglas
little weak.
stated,
He's a little weak. He'll grow.
I just urge my colleagues, let's stay in our lane. Let's do what we do best, which is advocate on behalf of our city. Again, I'll support this resolution because I agree with the mayor's comments. But as we go forward, hearing the commission body, let's be cognizant of the types of things that we're putting on the agenda so as to not have these discussions going forward. So I will support it. Any other comments? Is this something we need to call a question on? Yes? Ms. Kislin? I'm sorry to interrupt.
You're talking about the
17A resolution. Is that a vote?
I'm sorry, is that Commissioner Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman's resolution?
Yes, condemning.
It was a resolution, so yes, you need to call a vote.
All right, let's call the question.
We need to have a
I'm sorry, is there a motion?
motion and a second.
Motion by Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman. Is there a second? Mayor Ryan, are you seconding or am I handing the gavel over?
I will second, but let me just make a comment since we're seconding and we're making a motion just for discussion, and this is to your point, Deputy Mayor. These are issues that could be offered as a proclamation. I feel for my colleagues who may not feel that this is something that they feel comfortable with all the language or all the knowledge, and I would just caution colleagues in trying to put any of us in a difficult position. I'm going to support this, so I'm not in a difficult position, but I feel for my colleagues who feel like either staying in the lane or they don't have enough information. Such resolutions could be offered in a different way and not create an etiquette issue. And so I support Assistant Deputy Mayor's efforts, and I agree with the message, but I do think, Deputy Mayor, you raised an excellent point, and perhaps the mechanism. I would never want one of my colleagues to be forced into voting no on a resolution like this, which could have really far-reaching, stark political consequences that could extend far beyond the borders of Sunrise. And I would just remind my colleagues that such efforts and putting colleagues in a difficult position like that There may be moments for it, there may be reasons for it, but I don't think that was intended here. But it can create an uncomfortable situation that was not intended. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
And to your point, Mayor, and I didn't bring it up as eloquently as you did, but, you know, sometimes these things can box us in a corner because, you know, we live in a very political environment. 2 years from now, I hear that I voted against the resolution to support the Cuban people, and it's held over my head. But at the same time, you know, that's all you're going to hear. You're not going to hear that, oh, you know, he had concerns about the foreign policy implications or, you know, the intellectual part of his concerns. You're just going to hear, oh, he doesn't support the Cuban people, and that's it. So, you know, I'd rather sometimes not be placed in this position, but...
Right, resolution shouldn't be brought up for us to support. If you want to do it as a different way, but a resolution means like the city is supporting this. And, you know, just to have a resolution brought before us, it just, like you said, it puts us the same way sometime someone brought up about the guns and we didn't want to vote on it because it put us in a bad spot. It ended up being that if we did vote on it, they could have removed us from office. I'm just saying, so, I mean, we understand what's going on in their country. But then again, we just got out of a 20-year war because we didn't think what was right in their country. But, you know...
The same country which in the 1980s we were given guns to fight the Russians.
Exactly. So I'm saying, right.
Today we're for it, tomorrow we're not.
So to my colleagues, I apologize for raising this point. I didn't mean to extend the meeting. I just was trying to emphasize.
Your point's valid, Mayor. Your point's valid, and I'm glad you raised it.
We're moving on. So we have a motion and we have a second. Let's call the question on item 17A.
Deputy Mayor Kirch?
Yes.
Commissioner Scudo?
No.
Commissioner Douglas?
No.
Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman?
Yes.
Mayor Ryan?
Yes.
Item passes 3-2. Next on the agenda is Commission and Mayor reports. Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Oh, all right. Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman's waiving her report. Is that a pattern? Commissioner Douglas.
No.
Waiving his report. Commissioner Scudo.
I just want to say Saturday was a beautiful ceremony held in the city of Sunrise for September 11th, the 20-year anniversary. For all those that were in attendance, for those of you that missed it, for whatever reason, Commissioner Kirsch did an outstanding job representing the city. The gentleman who was here tonight who donated the canine also was one of the speakers regarding, you know, his life story of what happened in September 11th. And it was nice to see a lot of people that did show up for it, for the 20-year anniversary. To the police and to the fire, to their honor guards, we thank you for your participation. To the two young ladies who attended and sang, you know, we thank them and appreciate the time they gave us that day. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scudo. Mayor Ryan, report.
Deputy Mayor, you may want to take a biological break because I have about 45 minutes of comments. I'm just kidding. No report.
All right. I have no report as well. City manager's report.
No report, Deputy Mayor.
All right. We are going to go to the city clerk's report.
No report, sir.
And then
City attorney report.
we'll pause for a moment to give Ms. Kislin. Ms. Kislin, you have a report? No report. All right. Do you still need some additional time, Ms. Kislin, to work through the issues? Let's take a 5-minute biological break so Ms. Kislin can
that to me so that I can visualize it in real time.
Email it to you.
Thank you.
Let us know when you get it, Mayor. Get a copy up here if you want to review the revised reso. All right. Let's see if we can. That's the revised reso with the wording.
I have it. I'm reviewing it now. Thank you.
We'll give you a couple minutes to review the changes, Mayor.
Oh, and update. Updating.
Thank you. I've reviewed it.
All right. Everyone up here?
Let me know when we're back on the record.
I will. Everyone up here had a chance to review it?
All right. I've been able to swallow that.
Commissioner Scudo, you need more time?
What's that?
You need more time to review this revised
I
reso?
just don't see in here, it doesn't say anything that if they decided to.
Are we on the record? By the way, I just want to check. Have we opened the meeting back up? I apologize, Commissioner.
Not yet. I'm just making sure that
All right,
he's
so
got
let's,
an
no.
meeting on item. Let me get to the item. Sorry. Item 12D, reopening the meeting. Did my colleagues get a chance to review the revised resolution that was provided to them?
If I may.
Sure,
So,
Ms. Kissler?
based on the conversation, I've changed the title of the resolution to add regarding the extended hours license for congas instead of revoking. So I changed the word revoking to regarding. It's shown in underscore and strike through. And then in section 3, added that the city commission finds that substantial competent evidence exists to revoke conga's extended hours license. That sentence would then end. And then all new language, the city commission determines that it will hold a vote on the revocation of conga's extended hours license in abeyance until the April 2022 renewal of conga's extended hours license, or until any time that an item is placed on the agenda to consider the revocation of conga's extended hours license. The extended hours license renewal shall be reviewed for approval or disapproval by the city commission in April 2022. The suspension imposed by resolution number 1616621A is hereby lifted. So that would give anyone, you guys could direct staff to put an agenda item on. Staff could on their own put on an agenda item at any time between now and April. Come April, the renewal would be considered by the commission instead of staff.
So if there's any inkling of anything going wrong, this can go right on for an immediate vote. And we don't have to take...
Deputy Mayor, I'm raising my hand when you have a chance.
Sure. So we wouldn't have to take any more testimony. We could just call the question
Right, that's why
immediately.
the first sentence there says that you find that substantial competent evidence exists to revoke it currently.
Okay, so there would be no additional findings of fact at that meeting. It would just be a call to vote.
Yes.
All right. Mayor Ryan, you had a question?
I do. While I had offered a suggestion to try to facilitate what the majority wanted to do, this is certainly not within the spirit of what I intended. I am not, and it doesn't matter because I'm in the minority on this, but I'm not supportive of simply lifting it, going back to where we were, and then dealing with this in April. What I would hope is that specific voluntary conditions that may be outside the extended hours license ordinance would be considered and offered that would put teeth in and would be enforceable, and that we would bring this back, and I'm not trying to add to the next meeting, but we would bring this back on the next meeting to consider what those conditional items are, recognizing I will still be in the minority then, but that I would like to weigh in on that. So
Are you able to suggest a process, Mayor, that we could achieve?
I'm sorry, sir?
Are you able to suggest a process that we could lift the suspension but still get the language you're looking for?
Yes, sir. I appreciate you offering that. Yes, I think that if we were to say the commission holds in abeyance, just trying to change the additional language, the revocation, and then we can set this on the next agenda for staff to work with the licensee on additional conditional, voluntary conditional points that at least will address some of the concerns. If Commissioner Douglas, you're okay with that, I'm happy to.
Yeah, here's what I was, and we can work through this. This language that's being proposed right here, right now, we could just do away with this and table this. But can we just do a voice motion to just lift the suspension, and that's it, and then deal with all of this at a later date?
It's an excellent question. Here's my concern, and again, I recognize that I'm in the minority on this. That would simply put them back to the position we're in without any voluntary conditions that would create additional teeth.
Right, but we would bring this back at the next meeting, not some way out the road thing. We would just for 2 weeks.
Fair point. Yes, if the idea was the extended hours license renewal, which is the second additional sentence, for approval or disapproval by the commission, all that's unnecessary, right?
Yeah.
If you went with the third sentence, the suspension imposed by resolution number whatever is hereby lifted until, and we could say until the next meeting, which would then allow us to create that agreement. And I think to my colleagues who are in the majority, if it turns out, for instance, that staff is recommending certain conditions that the licensee says, I don't think we can live up to those. It's kind of like, and I'll say this to Commissioner Douglas and Deputy Mayor Kurtz, it's kind of like somebody who says, I can't do probation because I know I'm going to violate, right? If we can create the conditions and they know they can live by them, I'm still not in support of it, but at least it would assuage the issues. So what I would like to do is I'm happy to facilitate, even though I'll vote against it, I'll facilitate the idea of lifting the suspension until the next meeting, subject to the agreement that staff and legal will try to work on the voluntary conditions that would address the issues that have been raised by the minority.
I hear that, and with respect to, since you mentioned probation, I'd like to say, when I represent drug clients, if a guy smokes some weed and he wants probation, I probably will agree, all right, we could do probation. But if he's an oxycodone addict, I don't put him on probation because that monkey you just can't beat. I think the point I'm trying to raise is...
Let me say, Commissioner, that I think we've all faced a position where they've been offered time, and it would be better for them to take the time than the paper for 5 years. And in an effort to get out, they'll take the paper, and we know they're coming back. So I'm just suggesting that if we can bring this not back in April, but for the next meeting, it would be appreciated.
But I want to strike the balance here. I only mentioned that whole thing because I don't want us to try to create conditions that are untenable or just unreasonable. So I just wanted to say that, I don't want to hear that, they couldn't meet these conditions, so they're back in a corner. They need to be reasonable in the context of what's going on.
Let's let staff deal with that.
Yeah.
How do we get to that point? And that's where
Then, based on what I'm hearing, I'm sorry.
I've seen people sit here and make motions and just, I'm trying to find a motion to lift the suspension and just let them deal with this.
I think
Okay.
she's going to give us an answer to that.
So based on what I'm hearing, So Section 3, we would leave as revised. The City Commission finds that substantial competent evidence exists to revoke Conga's extended hours license, period. The City Commission determines that it will hold a vote on the revocation of Conga's extended hours license in abeyance until September 28, 2021, City Commission meeting. And then the suspension lifted by resolution number 1616621A is hereby lifted until September 28, 2021.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Mayor Ryan?
Yes, I think that accomplishes. The only question I would have is to legal and to staff, is there any concern that lifting the suspension for that period of time could allow the licensee to basically run the gaps in our ordinance and, resell or anything like that? Is there any concern there?
It's 2 weeks.
We'll revoke it.
You're right. I understand,
Only took
Commissioner.
one
You're right.
day.
You're right. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. All right. So I think that works.
Yep. Mayor, were you done? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I'm done.
All right, Commissioner Douglas, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that works. It's a tight leash, but it just allows them to get back to it, and we'll get some language and we'll flesh it out again, and we'll go forward.
All right.
The only thing I would say, Deputy Mayor, if I can, just to Commissioner Scudo, who is with me in the minority, I just want to make sure his concerns are addressed as well.
I'm going to him next. Commissioner Scudo.
No, I'm just concerned about we don't know what's going to go inside of this. I just want to make sure that the city's protected as far as if this goes until April, that anyone.
No, it's still September.
No,
It's still
I'm saying for this part. I just want to make sure whatever they're going to add, because I don't know what they're going to add.
No, they're bringing it back in September, not in April.
No. What I'm saying is, they're going to be working on it now. I just want to give my input as to make sure that we don't have what happened in Davie, where they were allowed to open back up as a strip club, and then this lawyer, who's very knowledgeable, knows how to keep them open until the court case, which could be years down the road, and then we have no teeth.
Yeah, but this
That's
is
what
not
I-
a strip club.
Okay, what I'm saying is, I want to make sure somewhere where they cannot do what they did, okay, and then be protected by this lawyer.
Mr.
Okay.
Lubelski, Ms. Kislin, everybody just make sure they circulate whatever language as soon as we all come up with it to Commissioner
Right.
Scudo.
Point of order.
Have direction. I mean, to me, I can't come up with terms because I don't know what the commission wants.
Yeah. Point of order. I think that's hard to do. What I was going to suggest, I think Commissioner Scudo raises a great point over the next 2 weeks. We can direct legal to negotiate. But I think if we had the licensee come forward and just say, look, we're not going to sell our interest, we're not going to change management, we're not going to relinquish, and give the word. I know that my colleagues who are in the majority, if that word was violated, I know you'll respond in kind.
Absolutely.
Okay, so at this point, we don't need Mr. our lawyer anymore. Is Kim going to do this now, or we're still going to have to pay
So
him?
here's what I'm prepared to say. Here's what I'm prepared to say. If the licensees, hold on. If 1 second, Mr. Kirsch. If the licensees come up here and give verbal, I don't even need to get this written out in no agreement. Because if they come here and give verbal assurances to me that they're going to act in a certain way, and they don't, that's it. I'll be the first one to chop off the head off of that snake. So I don't even need it in writing. I'm telling them that right now.
So when do we cut off Mr. Rossman from representing us? Because,
Hold on.
I mean, this is.
Let's deal with one issue at a time.
on, Joey.
Well, I'm saying, are we going to make Kim do this, or are we still going to pay him
I'm
to
sure
do this?
Kim has 3 lawyers in her office. I'm sure we can tie this up.
Okay, so I'm saying, so we don't need counsel anymore?
Come
That's what
on,
I'm trying to
man.
find out.
Cut it out.
We need direction from the city commission as to what
Okay.
the terms are, because we're not going to go talk with
There
every
were some
commissioner and
terms that
figure
were
out.
suggested earlier
majority.
today at the beginning of the meeting, which is the mayor has indicated he has concerns about transfer of the business, the shares in the business, or controlling interest in the business. So we could just make it that they can't transfer any interest in the business whatsoever. Whether we know it as a minority interest, a majority interest, no transfer of the business.
Can we put that in this thing till the next meeting?
Well, the thing is, we don't need to do it tonight.
Okay. I'm willing to do it anyway.
I agree with Commissioner Douglas. I think, and I respect my colleagues who will hold the line on this, that if they come forward, and both of them, I don't want to hear later that Frank did something, if they both come forward and say, look, we're not doing this, I trust my colleagues will suffer no fools on this if it happens. It's not that it matters, I'm in the minority, but I think that that would give us some sense of comfort, and over the next 2 weeks, legal can work out the conditions that I hope are draconian in nature, but achievable and reasonable.
What I would do is split this as a task between legal and the city manager. I think the city manager can come up, between city manager and his staff, can come up with some reasonable probationary conditions, which prior to today's meeting, I had asked the city manager to frame for me some basis upon which we could potentially allow this to go forward while holding something, and I think they have some framework that could work. So I'd ask the city manager, and at least that would be my personal request, that the city manager and his team from community development would come up with some conditions that they believe reasonably assuages the concerns that were raised here of the commission, and then legal can vet it for you know, I guess the word is legal sufficiency, and I think that would be good enough. As far as I'm concerned, I'm making it very clear that we are going over and beyond in giving this grace. Grace, as I know it from reading the Bible, is giving undeserved mercy. Undeserved mercy. But if somebody crosses me on that, I'm going to make the axe fall real hard.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Brahman, can you come up? Mayor, they're at the podium if you want to ask the question on assurances.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. And again, appreciating that I am not supportive of moving forward, and you understand that I'm supportive of revocation.
Noted.
And appreciating what the Deputy Mayor said earlier, that it's good that it's a 3-2 vote. I need to be clear about this. Are you willing to not only abide by the conditions of the extended hours license, but commit here tonight to my colleagues that you will do nothing to transfer ownership interests or relinquish management control to anyone other than yourselves? That is, that you will maintain that until we can address this issue again at the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Any of my colleagues? Good? Ms. Guzman? All right.
Okay.
Ms. Kislin, I'm going to thank you.
You did a different draft now?
Yep, Ms. Kislin, I'll turn it back to you for the different draft.
Yep. And actually Shannon just pointed out that I didn't finish a sentence. So this draft says the City Commission finds that substantial competent evidence exists to revoke Conga's extended hours license. The City Commission determines it will hold a vote on the revocation of Conga's extended hours license in abeyance until the September 28, 2021 City Commission meeting. The suspension imposed by Resolution number 1616621A is hereby lifted until the September 28, 2021 City Commission meeting. I'll have to add in those words, until the September 28, 2021 City Commission meeting.
Is that okay, Mayor?
Yes, I worry about enforcement. I think that's what Commissioner Scudo's concern is. If it happens, we'll deal with it next. But that is helpful, and I appreciate the cooperation of the majority with the concerns of the minority.
Thank you.
I would just ask, what about, we're only saying that they can't transfer up until the 28th. Are they allowed, I'm just asking, are they allowed to transfer from the 28th up until April?
No, that's going to be in a...
No, I'm just...
No, that's the whole point of then. By then, it will be in writing, not just their word, but they'll come back to us. Clearly, that's an indication that needs to be part of any agreement coming forward.
I just want to make sure that, I'm just saying, they could stay as the owners from September 28th to April, but then maybe the club switches. I just want to protect ourselves.
all this is moot anyway because the license is not transferable. So if they transfer it, whoever gets it, it's a whole different matter altogether. But, you know, for
No, it wasn't,
semantics,
because
we'll go through that.
This license was given X amount of years ago. She just became president only 4 years ago. So it was transferable.
No, she came to us for a new license. I was on the
I
commission
know
when
that.
they came here.
But it was transferred and she came back for another one. Right, I'm just saying.
Okay.
Okay.
I think, if I can, to
Go ahead, Mayor.
and again, Commissioner Scudo, I share your concerns. I think that we've put as tight a lid as we can on this until September 28th. And we have to trust that staff will work with each of the individual commissioners to address the concerns, and that legal will be able to craft that. If in the end, the Brandons don't agree to the conditions that are seen as reasonable, I'm confident in the majority will recognize what that means.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you, Mayor, because I think everybody up here, even though we may vote different on different issues from time to time, we will not ignore the concerns that the rest of us have, because at the end of the day, we all love the city and want to see the best for it. So there's no way we're going to, you know, cause a split up here over something like this if we don't care. See.
All right,
There's 25 years of votes, believe me, I hear you.
let's try and wrap this
All right,
up.
so can
One
we
second,
call
one second.
this-
Hold on. Ms. Kislin, do we need a motion on this amendment? Where are we at procedurally?
Yes, you would
I'm off
need
script.
to vote on amending by interlineation, so you would amend the title by replacing the word revoking with the word regarding, and then you would vote on Section 3. It currently reads, "The City Commission," we would add the words, "finds that substantial competent evidence exists to revoke." We're going to delete the words "determine that," keep the words "Conga's extended hours license," delete the rest of that sentence that says "shall be revoked." We're going to delete the next sentence that says, "Pursuant to Section 312B5, no reapplication shall be considered for the establishment's location within a 12-month period following the date of revocation." And we're going to add all new language that reads, "The City Commission determines that it will hold a vote on the revocation of Conga's extended hours license in abeyance until the September 28, 2021 City Commission meeting. The suspension imposed by Resolution Number 16621A is hereby lifted until the September 28, 2021 City Commission meeting."
Commissioner Douglas, do you make a motion?
Move it as amended.
Assistant
As was
Deputy
stated
Mayor,
by the,
do you second? All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Douglas and a second by Assistant Deputy Mayor. Let's call the question.
Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kirch.
Yes.
Commissioner Scudo.
No.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah.
Mayor Ryan.
To my colleagues in the majority, I appreciate the work on this. I'm going to vote no, but I thank you for your accommodations.
Item passes 3-2.
Motion.
Any further business?
And then please vote on it as amended.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's
So we amended the
You have to vote on it as amended.
now vote on, oh boy, I can't wait to be done. Let's vote on it as amended. Call the question.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Assistant Deputy Mayor Guzman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kirch.
Yes.
Commissioner Scudo.
No.
Mayor Ryan.
No.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion to
Oh,
adjourn.
I want to stay.
Is there a second?
I object.
All right, second by Assistant Deputy Mayor. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Mayor, please come back.